Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto becomes evil at young age part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. A 8-year-old Uzumaki Naruto frowned at the jar sitting on the other side of his kitchen table. The jar was filled with some strange black liquid and Naruto was staring at the jar as if it was some kind of poison. Which, as far as he knew, it was. Uzumaki Naruto was short for his age, had lightly tanned skin, spiky blonde hair, and bright blue eyes. On each of his cheeks were 3 horizontal whisker-like marks. He always liked his marks. He thought that they looked somewhat intimidating and would make any enemy ninja in fear if they ever saw them. Basically, Naruto looked like someone that any woman would randomly pick up and squeeze into her breasts in a bone-crushing hug because of his cuteness. Unfortunately, most of the adult villagers would not even go near the boy, let alone touch him. Instead, they would glare, ignore, or verbally assault little Naruto. On rare occasions, the villagers would gang up and beat the boy until an ANBU would come in and stop the abuse. Sometimes the beatings would be so bad that Naruto would have to be sent to the hospital. Luckily, he had his own personal doctors and nurses that the Hokage had assigned to take care of Naruto every time he is sent to the hospital. The cause of the torment was the demon sealed inside of him. On the day of Naruto's birth, the Kyuubi no Yoko attacked Konoha and caused many deaths and much destruction. It lasted for several hours until the 4th Hokage sealed the great demon inside Naruto. Over the years, the villagers' hatred for the fox was projected onto the boy, who most saw as the demon itself. Only a few people saw Naruto for who he really was and not what was sealed inside him. Because of a law made to protect Naruto, it was illegal for anybody to even hint at what was sealed away without risk of execution. This law was meant to allow Naruto to make at least a few friends with children his own age, and so far it has only caused him pain. One would think that such torture would break one's spirit and drive them to do terrible things. Not Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto would always appear to be in a good mood, a big smile on his face or a look of absolute determination. His will appeared unwavering. The only time his happy demeanor would falter would be either during a beating or when someone hurt one of his precious people. Though limited in number, the little boy would do anything in his power to protect and make his precious people happy. Flashback. A few hours ago, after he had had his dinner of 12 bowls of ramen at the Ichiraku ramen bar and was heading home with a full stomach, Naruto was stopped by a figure wearing a tan cloak and an ANBU mask. "Hello there, Naruto," the figure said in a kind female voice. "I have a gift for you." Naruto glared at the figure. Years of being the butt of many cruel jokes from the villagers has made him wary of any form of gift. "And just who are you, lady?" he said snobbishly. The woman lightly chuckled. "Who I am is not important." She reached into her cloak and pulled out a large clear glass jar filled with a strange black liquid. "What is important is what is inside this jar." The woman knelt down so that she was face to face with the short blonde kid, and held the jar between them. "Inside this jar is something that is very special. But before I can give it to you, I have a question. Do you want to become strong, Naruto?" "More than anything else in the world," Naruto shouted loudly, while a fire of passion burned behind his eyes. "I'm gonna train to become the strongest ninja in the whole village and become Hokage." He pumped a fist in the air at his declaration. The woman gave another light chuckle and asked with mirth, "And why is that? Why do you want to become Hokage? It is such a big responsibility." Naruto's face broke into his famous foxy grin. "I want to be Hokage so that I can protect the people that are important to me and to finally get the respect of the whole village." "Alright," the lady said as she held out the jar to the child. "Take it." Not wanting to be too impolite to the nice lady, Naruto took the jar and smiled. "Thanks, lady." The woman stood up, turned around, and began to walk away. She was only able to take a few steps before Naruto called out to her. "Hey, lady. You never told me exactly what is inside the jar or why you gave it to me." She mentally shook her head and smiled underneath her mask. Turning to face the boy, she said, "I already told you that something very special is inside that jar. It will help make you very strong. All you have to do is open it." "Not here," she quickly added as she saw Naruto about to open the jar. "Wait until you get home to open it, then reach in and grab the black stuff inside. To answer why I am giving it to you. It's because you're special, nothing else." And with that, the lady disappeared in a cloud of white smoke. Naruto looked down at the jar in his arms and smiled broadly. "If this stuff will make me strong, then I can become Hokage faster. Maybe the old man would see how strong and awesome I really am and just hand over the title of Hokage to me. I'll become the youngest Hokage ever." And with that final thought, Naruto ran home with the biggest grin he ever had. As he neared his apartment, though, his mood and thoughts changed. That lady was nice, but how do I know what she said is true? He held the jar up to eye level so that he could see the black substance. She said this stuff would help make me strong. As far as I know, she could just have been trying to trick me into taking some kind of poison. This junk doesn't look like it will help me get strong. But then again, it could be some new kind of super medicine that will make me grow giant muscles and make me strong enough to crush any mountain. Naruto continued to mull over whether the black liquid was as he reached his small apartment, unlocked the door, and went inside. He placed the jar on one side of his kitchen table, grabbed the seat directly across from the jar and sat down. Naruto's apartment was small, with a single bedroom that had a single-person bed, a small dresser, a nightstand with an alarm clock, and a small closet. Across from his bedroom was his bathroom, which had the bare necessities for said room. His kitchen/dining room was connected to a small living room by a small hallway. The living room only had a small two-person couch that looked to be about 20 years old in the center of the room and a small table in one of the corners of the room where he had a small potted fern sitting on top. Naruto's kitchen/dining room was as small as his bedroom, with a small table that was able to sit 2 people at either end, a sink, a couple cupboards filled with his favorite food, ramen, and a small refrigerator. Despite the limited space, Naruto was comfortable with his home. He had all he needed. He was never able to understand why people always wanted to have a big house. All it would do is take up space that could be used for something more important, like training to become Hokage. Naruto was glad that the Hokage bought him his apartment after he was kicked out of the orphanage. Present time. Naruto suddenly stood up and walked over towards the jar and stared hard at it, as if hoping the answer would just appear on the jar itself. "I don't know what to do," he mentally screamed. "I can either risk getting poisoned if it is dangerous or become incredibly strong if what the lady said is true. But I can also show it to the old man and ask him what it is, but he'll probably say that I shouldn't mess around with stuff if I don't know what it is, and then he would take it away and I still would have no idea what the hell this stuff is." Naruto shrugged his shoulders and grabbed the jar with his right hand. With his other hand he unscrewed the lid of the jar and placed it on the table. He stared down at the black liquid and thought, "Well, I've never heard of a poison that kills people just because they touch it." He took a deep breath. It's now or never. He closed his eyes tightly and reached into the jar. His hand came into contact with the black liquid and he held it there, just lightly on the surface of the liquid. Naruto kept his hand there for several seconds and slowly opened his eyes. He looked down at the hand touching the black junk. "It's warm," he said to himself, surprised. Seeing that nothing had happened when his hand touched the stuff, Naruto pushed his hand past the thin barrier that separated the liquid from the air and felt his whole hand encompassed by warmth. He noticed that the substance felt more like glue than water, and it didn't ripple when his hand touched it. Naruto tried to grab the contents of the jar. Suddenly the black goop began to travel up Naruto's arm. In surprise he yanked his arm out of the jar, causing it to roll off the table to smash on the floor. The black junk was still crawling up his left arm as the empty jar fell. Before the substance could reach his elbow, he grabbed a handful and tried to pull it off. The substance stretched as Naruto pulled at it, and it began to crawl up his right arm along with his left. Before long both of Naruto's arms, chest, and upper parts of his legs were covered in the black substance. He tried to call out in vain hope that someone would come, but his voice did not seem to work. It did not take long for the black substance to travel up his neck and begin covering his head. He suddenly began to feel tired, like as if he had ran 20 laps around Konoha without a break. Then his vision went black as the substance covered his entire body. Meanwhile, inside the Kyuubi seal, the giant fox demon was thrashing around inside his cage. Something is trying to get in and gain control, but what? The room of the Kyuubi no Kitsune was impossibly large. The ceiling could not be seen since it reached beyond the most powerful eyesight into darkness. The whole room was flooded with several inches of water that continuously dripped from the pipes that came out of the concrete walls. Basically the room looked like a sewer, only cleaner. The bars of the fox's cage were like the bars of a jail cell with a small slip of paper that had the kanji for seal on the center bar. Despite the lack of any form of light source, everything except for the ceiling and the single massive hallway exit could easily be seen. The sounds of crashing water and the vibrating floor drew the Ninetales' attention to the only entrance to his chamber. Something big was approaching, and judging from the vibrations of the floor, whatever it was as large if not larger than the Kyuubi itself. Before the unknown guest could be seen, the vibration stopped. The being had stopped just before the light of the room could touch it. "Who are you?" the demon demanded of the unseen figure, his lips curled back into a vicious snarl. At first he got no reply. Then suddenly a large black fist flew out of the darkened hallway and smashed several bars of the cage. Kyuubi was so surprised by the action that he failed to notice the countless number of small black tendrils that slithered along the walls and floor towards his cage. The fist opened up, revealing 5 strong fingers that had dark purple claws in place of nails. QB snapped out of his shock and noticed that the hand was larger than his head and was attached to a heavily muscled arm. QB tried to attack the hand, but sudden pain caused him to stop in his advance. He looked down to see millions of small black tendrils wrapping themselves around his legs. He tried to yank his legs free, but every little movement caused a massive wave of agony to course through his body. The giant hand pulled back and disappeared into the darkness of the hallway. Gra! QB growled as he tried to free himself. What the hell is this? Who are you and what are you doing to me? The unseen being remained silent as the tendrils began to travel up the fox's body. Stop this at once. Do you know who I am? The QB roared as he ignored the pain caused by his thrashing about. I am the great QB no Yoko, and I will devour your soul for attacking me. I am going to rip out your intestines and hang you with them. I am going to skin you alive and use your pelt as a bath mat. Suddenly the great demon lord's legs gave out underneath him and he toppled over onto his side. His eyes widened as realization finally struck. You're trying to kill me? He roared in absolute rage. You dare to attack and kill the most powerful demon in existence? The QB slowly began to chuckle while the tendrils crawled all over his body. His light chuckling soon became full-blown insane laughter. You can't kill me. Nothing can kill me. He continued to laugh and boast while his body was slowly overtaken by the tendrils. In a matter of minutes, the dreaded demon that caused so much havoc and mayhem for countless centuries was gone. The mighty QB was dead. The tendrils slowly began to retreat back into a hallway where they had come from. They left no sign of the giant fox or of their presence. As soon as all of the tendrils were gone, several giant tentacles took their place. The tentacles slowly stretched and spread out until the entire room was black. The sounds of crashing water and the vibration of the ground slowly retreated from the now empty room. The next day, early morning. Ugh, Naruto groaned as he slowly woke up and got into a sitting position. What the hell happened last night? Slowly, the images of what took place the previous night flashed in his mind. Jerking his left hand into view, he saw no sign of the black liquid that had attacked him last night. Naruto slowly stood up and began to look himself over for any sign of the black stuff. Just as he was about to take his jacket and shirt off to check the rest of his body, a loud beeping sounded from his bedroom. He quickly dashed to said room and saw to his horror that he was going to be late for academy. All thoughts of last night's events disappeared from his mind as he took a quick shower and dressed in a pair of green boxers, his orange sweatpants, strapped on his weapon holster on his right leg, a skin-tight black shirt, and his orange jacket. Naruto quickly jumped into his blue ninja sandals, dashed out his front door, locked it, and bolted towards the academy. Crap, I hope I'm not too late. I really don't want to have to listen to Irika-sensei's lecture about tardiness again, Naruto thought as he took to the rooftops and continued on his way. Several minutes later, Naruto arrived at the academy and ran to his class. When he arrived, he noticed that almost all of the seats were taken except two. One of the available seats was next to a loud pink-haired girl in a red combat dress and black bicycle shorts who went by the name Haruno Sakura. The other seat was next to a quiet dark-haired girl who wore an oversized tan jacket and tight black ninja pants. Since he did not fully know the shy girl, besides that her name was Hyuga Hinata, and not one to pass up the chance to make a new friend, Naruto went over to the girl. Is this seat taken? He asked her. The girl jumped at the sound of Naruto's voice and faced him with bright red blush present on her face. Naruto-kun wants to sit next to me and not next to Sakura? Hinata thought to herself. Suddenly Naruto's face fell when she did not give him an answer. If you don't want me to sit here, then I'll just sit somewhere else, he made to the other available seat when a small squeak drew his attention back to the Hyuga. What was that? Hinata silently gulped and gathered up all of her available courage. Why you can sit he here, and in Naruto-kun. She gave a quiet sigh of relief when his famous foxy grin appeared on his face. Thanks, Hinata-chan, Naruto said as he sat down. Hinata turned red at his thanks and began to fiddle with her fingers. Several weeks later, near Naruto's apartment. It has been 2 weeks since Naruto was attacked by the strange black substance. At times he has contemplated going to either Irika-sensei or Old Man Hokage and telling them about it. Yet every time the thought crossed his mind, he would decide against it since he has yet to find any negative side effects of the strange liquid. But that is not to say that there have been any positive effects either. Since the day that he decided to sit next to her, Naruto was able to become quick friends with Hyuga Hinata. Unlike most of the other academy students, Hinata would not laugh or yell at Naruto whenever he made a mistake. Instead, she would help him understand and correct any problems that he had. She was patient when he was having serious trouble. She would laugh when he tried to cheer her up, she would comfort him whenever he was sad. Overall, Hinata was trying her hardest to be the best friend to her crush. Naruto, on the other hand, was beyond the basic concept of happy. He finally had a friend that was in his own age group. Sure, he was friends with Iruka, Old Man Hokage, Ichiraku Tuchi and his daughter Ayame, but none of them were kids and were normally too busy to play with little Naruto. When Hinata became his friend, Naruto was the happiest he had ever been. Ever since that fateful day, the blonde and brunette would almost always be seen together. Except for tonight. Naruto was currently strolling home with his stomach full of the heavenly food made by the Ichiraku ramen bar. He looked up at the clear night sky and gazed at the bright full moon that lit up the inky black sky. As far back as Naruto could remember, he had always enjoyed the nights of the full moon. He did not know why he enjoyed such nights, just that whenever he gazed up at the full moon a sense of tranquility would suddenly wash over him. All of his fear, anger, sadness, and anxiety would simply disappear. Feed. Hunger. A deep demonic voice growled. Naruto was suddenly at attention. He swiveled his head around to find the source of the voice but could not see anyone. His face instantly changed from calm to serious as he crouched into the taijutsu style he was taught in the academy. He slowly took out a kunai from his weapons pouch and froze. Naruto remained in that position for a good 5 minutes before he slowly returned to his relaxed demeanor. Years of being ambushed by the villagers had taught Naruto to never ignore even the slightest hint of danger. He cautiously placed his kunai back into his pouch and continued his stroll to his apartment. After several minutes of uneventful walking, Naruto decided that there was no danger and completely returned to his calm demeanor. Unfortunately, the calm of the night would not last. Suddenly, Naruto's whole body was racked with blinding pain. He clenched his eyes shut and tried to bite back a scream of agony as the sudden pain forced him to his knees. Naruto was able to catch himself before he fell face first onto the hard ground. The pain increased with every second that passed as Naruto fought to keep himself conscious. He unclenched his eyes just in time to see the black substance from 2 weeks ago cover his face. He finally let out a scream for help as he slipped out of consciousness, but the cry was muffled by the black substance as it continued to cover him completely. Hunger. Feed. The voice from earlier growled. Several hours later, the Jounin bar. The Jounin bar is exactly what it sounds like, a bar for Jounin only. Because of the dangerous and sometimes emotionally draining lifestyle that comes with being a Jounin rank ninja, a special bar was built just for said ninja. It was open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and only Jounin were allowed in. The bar was like any other found in a ninja village, except that the second floor was made specifically for drunk couples to spend the night in. Normally, the Jounin bar would be full of tired, emotional, and drunk ninja, but not tonight. Tonight, the only patrons were a couple using one of the many rooms on the second floor and a single Jounin who was drinking away his problem with gambling. The bartender had gone into the back room for a quick romp with his wife, leaving the drunk Jounin alone at the bar. He was about to reach for another bottle of sake when a food cart crashed through the entrance to the bar, leaving a large gaping hole. What the? The drunk ninja swerved around as the food cart slid into the counter with a loud slam. He slowly stood on his 2 wobbly legs and tripped his way over to the large hole. Taking a swig from his sake bottle, the drunk stuck his head outside and squinted his eyes for any sign of who could have done this. In his inebriated state, the ninja failed to notice the towering figure rising behind him. In an instant he found himself halfway down the stomach of a horrid creature. Meanwhile, just a street away. The hell was that? One Inuzuka-tsum shouted. The Inuzuka matriarch had just returned from a solo mission and was currently making her way to the Hokage Tower to fill in her report when a loud crash caught her attention. She instantly changed direction and headed for where the sound came from. When Tsum landed on the building directly across from the Jounin bar, she was met with the sight of the overturned food cart and the large hole in the wall. Nothing else. Tsum's sense of smell, though, told her otherwise. The entire area smelled strongly of fresh blood and slightly of sex. Her brow furrowed as she scanned the surrounding area. Seeing not a single person, Tsum drew a kunai and leapt down to the entrance of the bar. She cautiously made her way into the bar and forced her senses to maximum efficiency. The rubble on the floor would crunch or clatter with every step Tsum made and caused her to move at an even slower pace. She came to a complete stop at the center of the bar and remained completely motionless, except for her eyes which continued to scan the area. She noticed that the doorway that led to the second floor was destroyed, along with the stairway. Rumble. Crash. Tsum just barely got out of the way as a large mass crashed through the ceiling. She performed a quick roll and jumped into her clan's fighting stance, facing where she was just standing. Her eyes grew as she saw what had nearly crushed her. It stood at just over 6.5 feet and was completely black. Its entire body appeared to be completely composed of pure, bulky, muscle. The thing's strong arms ended with large, powerful hands. Each hand had 5 fingers that had sharp purple claws where the nails should be. A strong pair of legs held the beast off the ground. Sim noticed that the feet of the creature were not human-like in any form. Each foot had 2 forward-pointing toe-like claws that spread out into a V-like shape, while the third toe, on each foot, was attached to the side, like the thumb of a human hand. Each toe was double-jointed, like a finger, and appeared to allow the feet to be used like hands. What caught Inuzuka-tsun's attention the most, though, was the thing's face. The face was somewhat elongated and looked alien. The eyes were pure white, large enough that they almost touched at the end of the creature's snout, and appeared to be torn at the edges. The being's massive jaws were what took up most of the length of its head. The jaws were filled with countless razor-sharp fangs that dripped with poison-green saliva. Finally, the monster's tongue was long, sharp, bright red, and twisted every which way as it licked its massive maw. "What the hell are you supposed to be?" Sim spoke with a disgusted grin. She noticed that its head, hands, and feet were soaked in blood. As a response, the creature slashed at the Inuzuka matriarch with its left hand. Sim leapt out of the way and tossed several kunai at the thing's head and neck. It did not make even the smallest effort to dodge the projectiles and charged at Sim. The kunai stabbed into the creature, but it completely ignored them as it tried to shoulder slam the woman. Sim dodged the attack and sent a bone-shattering kick to the thing's head. Sim smirked as the creature staggered back from the kick. It quickly steadied itself, and, to Sim's shock, it showed absolutely no sign that it had ever been hurt. Even the kunai that had hit their target were gone. The creature glared at the Inuzuka and let loose a loud, inhuman roar as it charged at her again. "Tunneling Fong!" Sim shouted as she leapt into the air and turned into a small tornado of claws and launched herself at the monster. The two were about to collide, when suddenly the creature ducked underneath the spinning Sim, twisted its body around, and grabbed her leg. Sim let out a scream of pain as her leg was crushed by the creature's grip. Next thing she knew, Sim was being thrown through the wall of the bar and slammed into the building across the street. She tried to get up, but the pain forced her down. She quickly looked up at where the creature should have been, only to see the new hole in the bar's wall. She slowly crawled to her feet, using the wall to balance on, and searched the surrounding area for any sign of the creature. She could not find it. It had disappeared. Next day, Academy Courtyard, lunch. Uzumaki Naruto and Hyuga Hinata were calmly eating their lunches that Hinata's mother had made for them. And that was strange. Normally Naruto would be going on about training, ramen, becoming a ninja, ramen, what he thinks the world outside the village is like, or ramen. Today, though, the spiky-haired lad was dead quiet. His face was one of deep thought. Hinata, being the shy narrow-holic that she is, was very worried about her favorite blonde. She wanted to ask him what was wrong, but stopped herself in case he was thinking about something very important. So she just sat next to Naruto underneath a large tree and ate in silence. "What the hell happened to me last night?" the blonde thought. The images of the previous night, before he lost consciousness, played out over and over inside his skull. "That stuff did something to me." He looked down at his hand as he repeatedly opened and closed it. "I feel different, yet exactly the same. I had better not tell anybody about this. I don't want the villagers to have another reason to beat me up." Hinata was about to confront her crush, but was luckily interrupted by the bell for lunch to be over and for classes to continue ringing, saving the shy girl from the risk of making Naruto mad. The two quickly finished their lunches and made their way back to Irika's classroom. Meanwhile, in Konoha's hospital. Then it just disappeared. Inuzuka-san finished as she rested in the hospital bed. After her short tussle with the unknown creature, Sim dragged herself to the hospital, and was now being treated for her broken leg. "I see," the Hokage slowly said with a frown. He had received word from one of the doctors at the hospital that Inuzuka-san had some very important information that he needed to hear. "Thank you, Tsum-san. I will have an increase of personnel guarding the village, and I will have the Konoha police looking out for this back demon," the aged ninja said calmly as he rose from his seat next to Tsum's bed. "Now I want you to stay here to heal until the doctors release you. Then I want you to tell Uchiha Fugaku-san and Itachi-san about last night. Understood?" "Yes, sir," Sim said as she reluctantly settled into the bed as the Hokage left. Just as the old man was about to leave the hospital, he came to a sudden stop. "Come out. Now," he commanded. Suddenly, a woman in a tan cloak and a plain white ANBU mask appeared in front of the Hokage. "Who are you and why are you in MY village?" he demanded more than asked. The woman smirked behind her mask. My, are we a impotent old man?" she giggled softly. "Everything that you need to know about me and my future husband is in a folder that I placed in your office. You don't have to worry about him for now. I temporarily sealed him away. We can't have him destroying his new home, now can we?" She giggled again. Sarutobi's face hardened. You know what attacked Samsan and killed those people at the Jounin bar? His voice was stern and demanding. Yep, the woman said with a happy tone. I've known him for the past 2,000 years. He is more like an animal than anything else. But I still love him. She ended dreamily. The Hokage gave the woman a questioning look. It's all explained in the folder. Well, anyway, I'll be back in a few years and I expect my demands be met when I return. Her voice suddenly became deathly serious. Or else you and this village will cease to exist. Okay? She said the last part in a happy tone. Before the aged ninja could give a reply, the woman suddenly vanished. The Hokage's eyes widened in shock. There was no warning of her departure, no smoke. He could not detect even the slightest amount of chakra required to perform such a technique. With a deep sigh, Sarutobi pulled out his favorite pipe and lit it as he made his way back to his office. Why do I get the feeling that it is going to get a lot more interesting around here? 3 years later, Academy, Sparring Ring. Today was a big day for the ninjas to be at Konoha Academy. Every teacher and student of the ninja school had gathered for a school-wide sparring tournament. The Academy Sparring Tournament was held every year and was used as a midterm for the students. Every teacher had come and was stationed around the ring to evaluate the performance of each student and to give their own grades of the matches. Along with the students, the parents of said students had also come to either cheer for or comfort their child. At least one parent of each student was present. First, let me thank all of you parents for coming here today, the gray-haired Chunin, Mizuki, yelled from the center of the wooden sparring ring. As you all know, every student here has been training to graduate and to become full-fledged ninja. Today, each student will be giving their all to show their skill and to impress their instructors. Now this is not a pass-or-fail event. We are only observing their current abilities so that we can set up proper teaching methods for each individual student. The matches for this event will be one-on-one, and each match will be between 2 random students who will to show us everything they've got. All of the students cheered at being given the opportunity to impress their parents. Now the rules are, Mizuki continued. Naruto was standing by himself near the ring as he listened to Mizuki talk. The reason he was alone was because all the parents had demanded their children to not go near the blonde boy. Hinata was one of them. Her father had a strong grip on her coat sleeve and would give a hard tug every time she made a move to go near Naruto. She could not understand why all of the adults were so mean to the little boy. Sure, he might have pulled a prank on them once or twice, but that was no reason to force him to be alone. The glares that the adults sent at little Naruto also confused poor Hinata. Every glare that was sent his way was always filled with such intense malice that Hinata was sure that she would burst into tears if anyone even glanced at her with so much hate. Naruto just ignored the glares. Okay, Mizuki finished. The first 2 who will fight will be. He looked down at the clipboard he had in his hands. Haruno Sakura vs. Inuzuka Kiba. A thin girl with long bright pink hair stood up from her seat next to her equally long pink-haired mother and made her way to the ring with a large smile on her face. Her red battle dress and black bicycle shorts were her current battle attire. Everyone knew that in a few months she would change into something else, then right back. Fashion was her top concern, rivaled only by her desire to be a ninja. Good luck, dear, Haruno Keiru said from her seat next to Uchiha Mikoto. The pink-haired mother and the clan matriarch had been the best of friends ever since they were kids, and their respective marriages did nothing to break their bond. As Sakura was making her way to the ring, so was one Inuzuka Kiba with his little white dog Akamaru, sticking his small head out from the front of Kiba's hooded jacket. The young Inuzuka had a small smirk on his face as he took his place in the ring, across from Sakura. Are the 2 combatants ready? Mizuki asked the 2 children. Sakura quickly got into the stance of the basic taijutsu that was taught at the Ninja Academy. Her smile was now gone, and in its place was the emotionless face of a true ninja. If one were to look hard enough into the young girl's green eyes, they would see a bright fire of determination burning strongly. Sakura was determined not to lose this fight. She would become a great ninja and make both of her parents proud. And beating the Inuzaka before her would make her one step closer to her goal. Kiba gently pulled Akamaru out of his jacket and placed him on the ground. The little puppy looked up at his master in confusion and gave a short bark. Kiba gave a soft chuckle and knelt down beside his dog and gave a light pat to his head. I want you to stay out of this one, little buddy, the master said to the dog. I'm gonna take care of this on my own. The sudden fire that blazed behind Kiba's eyes told Akamaru much more. Ever since Kiba's older sister, Inuzuka Hana, was named heir to the Inuzuka clan, Kiba has been trying to surpass her. Before his sister was given the title, Kiba had thought that since he was a boy he would automatically be named heir. He learned the hard way why that was not true. A year ago, Kiba and Hana had a short match in front of the Inuzuka Council against each other to determine who would be the next head of the Inuzuka clan. Hana beat poor Kiba without so much as earning a scratch from her hot-headed little brother. Ever since his humiliating defeat, Kiba has been training non-stop to best his sister. He would normally train with Akamaru, but on the rare occasions that the white dog was not near, he would train by himself. Fighting this match on his own was only one of the many ways that Kiba would try to impress his mother/clan head. He could not afford to fail. Kiba slowly got into his family's famous taijutsu stance. "All right," Mizuki said as he glanced at both combatants, and raised his right hand high above his head. "Fight!" he shouted as he brought his arm down in a chopping motion. Instantly, the two students charged at each other. Sakura sent a hard left jab at Kiba's gut with enough force to cause the dogboy to double over in pain. Kiba gripped onto Sakura's wrist and gave a hard upward pull. The sudden yank caused Sakura to stumble forward and allowed Kiba to slam her head with his own. He continued to headbutt the poor girl several times until she finally wrenched her arm free. Sakura stumbled back with her hands holding her now throbbing head. She quickly shook her head to try and rid herself of the pain and failed to notice Kiba's right leg sweeping across the ground. His leg made contact and swept the pinkette off her feet and knocking her to the ground. Kiba quickly raised the same leg and slammed it down onto Sakura's stomach. The girl gasped at the sudden pain but was able to roll away before Kiba could do it again. She quickly got back to her feet and glared at her opponent. Kiba smirked once he saw the determination and rage in Sakura's eyes. Aiming to finish this match once and for all, he reared his right fist back and charged at Sakura. Once he got close, Kiba threw his charged fist out at the beaten pinkette. However, while he thought he ended the fight then and there, Sakura had instead caught his hand with her left. With no time to react, Kiba could only stare as Sakura drew back her right arm and pounded her fist into his stomach. Kiba's eyes went wide as a jolt of pain surged through his body from the blow. Seeing as how he was winded from her blow, Sakura stepped closer and followed up by striking the same area with her right knee. Kiba's body couldn't take the stronger jolt of pain from the second blow, and Kiba fell over Sakura's knee. As Sakura stood, Kiba fell to the ground unconscious. Mizuki raised his right arm and pointed it in Sakura's direction. "The winner is Haruno Sakura." Meanwhile, Shimura Danzo was strolling quietly towards the academy. Behind him were 8 of his most loyal and powerful root ninja. Each root ninja had the traditional attire of the average ANBU and were following their leader in complete silence. Earlier that morning, when Danzo had made a visit to his hidden headquarters, he had selected his best ninja for what he called a very important mission. All that his ninja were told was that they were to capture and kill one Uzumaki Naruto and that he himself was to observe. The root members did not question his orders, or why he needed so many high-level ninja just to kill a kid, and agreed to the mission. Hiruzen thought he could hide this thing from me. He was gravely mistaken. The aged war hawk thought to himself. 2 years ago, one of Danzo's spies found an unusual folder hidden inside the Hokage's desk. The information inside of the folder both shocked and intrigued the root leader. Several special pieces of information, though, continued to dance about inside his old skull. With a twisted grin, Danzo reached inside one of the many hidden pockets inside of his robes and pulled out 2 sheets of paper. On the sheets of paper was all of the information that Danzo thought was important enough to copy from the stolen folder. The first page read: "The symbiotes are a race of aliens that arrived on Earth over 2,000 years ago. Symbiotes have the unique ability to bond with a host organism and greatly increase the host organism's power. The first symbiote was brought to Earth by a human that had found it on a distant planet. The human thought that the symbiote was some kind of costume and tried to wear the symbiote as such. The human was completely unaware that his new suit was in fact a powerful creature. The instant that the human put on the symbiote, it bonded with the human and increased the human's power. The human already had unusual abilities before the bonding. The human host used the symbiote for a short while until he decided to remove it. The symbiote was confused by its host's actions and quickly became resentful towards its host. After the symbiote was forcibly removed from its first host, it soon bonded with another human. Its new host already had a grudge against its previous host, and the symbiote's influence only increased both the human and the symbiote's anger and hatred. Combined with absorbing the abilities of its previous host and enhancing said abilities, the symbiote quickly became much more powerful than its first host. The symbiote hunted down its first host and would engage the human in many fights over the years until its hatred finally calmed down. After a short time, the symbiote regressed back to its once kind nature. That is until its second host was killed. Over the ages, the symbiote has bonded with countless other hosts. Unfortunately, because of the different natures of each individual host and its rapid switch from host to host, the mind of the symbiote was slowly destroyed. Its mind is now similar to a wild beast, making it twice as deadly and nearly impossible to control. The name that the symbiote had taken as its own during its second host was Venom. For a more detailed explanation of the history of the Venom symbiote, please see page 46. Symbiotes require a host to bond with for several reasons. The first is obvious: mobility. Without a host, a symbiote is nothing more than a little puddle that can barely move on its own. When bonded, the symbiote automatically has a mode of transportation: the host itself. The second reason is food. The symbiote feeds on the adrenaline created by its host. Symbiotes also feed on a hormone known as phenethylamine, which is found inside the human brain and in chocolate. It has also been recently discovered that symbiotes can also feed on their hosts and their victims' chakra. The downside to this is that the host can no longer use their chakra and must depend completely on their symbiote for protection. When bonded with a host, the symbiote is almost always feeding on the host's adrenaline, but it still must feed on others to survive. There are two distinct ways that a symbiote feeds on its victims. The first is like every other organism: it uses its host to eat other living creatures and always goes for the brain before eating anything else. The second method of feeding is considered the cleaner method. The symbiote possesses its host, then forces its victim directly into its body. The victim is then drained of all nutrition, then expelled from the symbiote as nothing more than a corpse. The third and final reason is defense. On their own, symbiotes are incredibly weak. Almost no effort is needed to destroy a symbiote that is not bonded with a host. When bonded, though, they become much more difficult to damage. A fully bonded symbiote can only be truly damaged by either intense heat or high-frequency sound waves. Anything else will simply irritate the symbiote. Danzo chuckled darkly as he flipped over to the second page. The abilities that the Venom symbiote will give to its new host, Uzumaki Naruto, alone are as followed: incredible strength, speed, and agility. Enhanced senses. A sixth sense of awareness of his surroundings, nicknamed Symbiote Sense. The ability to extend his limbs to a certain extent, mainly his tongue. The ability to change color to match his surroundings, effectively becoming invincible. A limitless number of symbiote tendrils, tentacles, claws, and blades. The ability to adhere to any surface. The abilities that Venom has when possessing Naruto are near impossible strength. His speed and agility are reduced because of his increase in size and muscle mass. Able to see almost completely around him because of his large eyes. Symbiote Sense. He starts to extend his tongue for battle more than his other body parts. The ability to blend in with his surroundings is still available but is not used as much because of his decrease in intelligence. Claws, fangs, tendrils, tentacles, blades, and his absorption ability. Unfortunately, with every advantage there is a disadvantage. Venom is weak against extreme heat and high-frequency sound waves. Sound waves cause great pain to both the symbiote and its host, and causes the symbiote to become unstable and weak enough to be forcefully removed. Heat simply burns the symbiote, and its host, causing both to, literally, melt into a puddle. As stated before, Venom is not that fast compared to when its host is using the symbiote's power, but his impressive strength makes up for the loss. Because of several events over the years, Venom's mind has become nothing more than that of an animal, except much more deadly. Unlike a normal beast, whose top priority is normally self-preservation, Venom now has absolutely no concern for the safety of itself or others. Regardless of what the danger is, Venom will charge in head first and ignore any and almost all damage. Only when its two weaknesses are used does the symbiote earnestly tries to avoid damage. Its main concern is only to kill and feed regardless of who is nearby. The friends and family of its host are in just as much danger as the host's enemies. Venom does have limited speech. It normally only growls or roars and is limited to only saying a few words at a time. For more information on Venom's abilities, see page 110. For all information pertaining to Venom symbiote, see page 40 to page 200. Besides the Venom symbiote, there are several other symbiotes that exist on Earth. Almost all of the other symbiotes on Earth were created from the Venom symbiote, and thus share all of its abilities plus their own special, or enhanced abilities. All symbiotes can detect one another and their hosts. Listed are all of the known symbiotes, besides the Venom symbiote, that are currently on Earth, along with their current host, if they have one, location, if known, and special traits and abilities that the Venom symbiote does not have. Name: Antivenom. Location: unknown. Host: unknown. The antivenom symbiote is exactly as its name implies. It is the opposite of Venom. It shares all of Venom's abilities but has absolutely no mind of its own. Its host has complete control. Antivenom is toxic to the original Venom. Just touching it causes the Venom symbiote great pain. Just as the antivenom symbiote touching Venom causes antivenom just as much pain. It is best to keep the two symbiotes away from each other, as they do not like the company of the other. Name: Phage. Location: Iwagakure. Host: unknown. Phage is unable to create tentacles of any kind. Instead, it creates large blades, spikes, and spines from its body that can be launched at opponents at high speeds. Phage is the youngest brother and youngest child of the symbiote siblings. Name, Riot. Location, Otogake. Your host, unknown. Riot's blood and saliva are highly acidic and can dissolve even the strongest of alloys. It never creates sharp weapons and instead uses its tentacles to bludgeon and beat its opponents. Riot is the oldest brother and oldest child of the symbiote siblings. Name, Lasher. Location, Sunagake. Your host, unknown. Lasher is able to create a mucus that is used to trap, crush, or suffocate its opponents. It also only uses its tentacles in a whip-like fashion. Lasher is the middle brother and is the third oldest child of the symbiote siblings. Name, Scream. Location, unknown. Host, unknown. Scream uses its long hair instead of tentacles to trap or kill its opponents. Somehow Scream is able to withstand the type of sound waves that normally harm symbiotes. Scream is the oldest sister and is the second oldest child of the symbiote siblings. Name, Agony. Location, unknown. Host, unknown. Agony, like its sister, uses its hair instead of tentacles to trap or kill its opponents. Agony can also absorb dangerous chemicals and weaponry to use against its prey. Agony is the youngest sister and is the third oldest child of the symbiote siblings. Agony is also the leader of the symbiote siblings. Note: the symbiote siblings are the children of the Venom symbiote. They were forcibly created by an organization that tried to control the symbiotes yet failed. The main goals of the symbiote siblings are to find their father, Venom, help their father to return to his once kind self, to find a wife for their father and subsequently its host, and to live together as one big family. Name, Toxin. Location, unknown. Host, unknown. Toxin is the grandchild of the Venom symbiote and the child of the Carnage symbiote. Toxin has the abilities of both of its relatives, and since it is a third-generation symbiote, it can withstand the weaknesses of normal symbiotes to a much greater degree than its father or grandfather. It has two different forms, a slim-bodied form where speed and quick attacks are used, and a large, muscled form where hard-hitting attacks are used. Because of its relatively young age, Toxin is quite immature and childlike and requires at least 4 hours of playtime a day. Its first host specified that it can do whatever it pleases during those 4 hours, but is not allowed to commit any acts of grand theft, arson, or homicide. Toxin pouted and whined for several hours after being told the rules. Name, Payback. Location, unknown. Host, unknown. Payback is a unique symbiote. Not much is known about it except that it was not created from the Venom symbiote. It is not known where it originated from. From the limited number of encounters with the symbiote, only limited data was collected. It appears to have the same abilities as Venom but only possesses its host when the host is in a state of pure bliss. One documentation shows that Payback has feelings for Venom and does not hesitate to act upon them. It was shown that Payback nearly wrapped one of the hosts of the Venom symbiote, but failed when it noticed the person documenting the event and fled. Name, Carnage. Location, 250 feet underneath Amigake. Your host, none. Every possible precaution has been made to prevent the release of the most dangerous creature in existence, Carnage, the son of Venom. The first host that the Carnage symbiote bonded to was criminally insane, and the insanity was amplified by the symbiote, creating a true monster. Carnage is ruthless, merciless, cruel, everything that could be considered insane, and it has total control over its host. Carnage kills purely for fun. Men, women, and children are its targets. It reasons that humans are just sacks of blood that make more sacks of blood. I want to color the world in everyone's beautiful blood. At every murder that the symbiote commits, it writes on the walls Carnage Rules. It is completely impossible to tell the difference between Carnage's feeding victims and its normal murder victims. It has the deadly abilities to change its host's appearance to that of any other human, and it can see completely around itself. Carnage is too dangerous to be allowed to be let free and was thus trapped in the most well-defended area in existence. If Carnage were to ever get loose and find a host, not even the power of all of the other symbiotes combined could save humanity. No one can control Carnage. Danzo finished reading the papers with a disgusting smile as the group approached the academy. Congratulations, Sakura, on your victory, Mizuki said as the pink-haired girl skipped out of the ring with a big smile on her face. The second she was out of the ring, she ran over to her mother and leapt into a bone-crushing hug. Kaoru hugged her daughter back and gave words of praise to Sakura. The two academy nurses came over to the ring and placed the unconscious Kiba on a stretcher and carried him over to the small medical tent that had been set up for such an occasion. Tsum shook her head as her son was carried off. Once again, my son had underestimated his opponent and has paid for it, Tsum thought. If he is to ever reach his dream of becoming heir to our clan, then he will have to learn to judge his opponents based on skill and strength. Not judge them based on sex. She looked up at the sky with a sad expression. Why? Why, dear Kami, did you give me such a sexist bitch of a son? She mentally screamed to the heavens as she began to walk over to the med tent. She would have to scold her thick-headed son later, after he woke up. The next match, Mizuki began, just as the academy nurses left the sparring ring. Will be between, he glanced down at his clipboard. Hyuga Hinata vs Uchiha Sasuke. Hinata's eyes widened in fear. Of all the people she had to go against, it just had to be an Uchiha. Hinata really did not like the Uchihas. They were always so mean to Naruto and arrogant to everybody else. The Hyugas were not much better, but at least they didn't beat up Naruto just for the sake of doing so. Hinata felt her father let go of her coat sleeve. She looked up at his stoic face and could see the hidden disappointment behind his facial expression. She gulped silently, then turned her head to see Naruto giving her a big thumbs up and a giant foxy grin. Give it your all, Hinata-chan. The blonde cheered to her. I know you can beat any Uchiha. You're Hyuga Hinata, my friend, and future leader of the Hyugas. Hinata's heart swelled as her crush cheered. All feelings of doubt left her as she made her way to the ring. Confidence filled her heart as she entered the ring. Hinata was not going to lose this match. She was going to win and prove herself in front of her father and her object of affection. Both would see her true strength. Hinata straightened her posture and made her way to the sparring ring. The fires of determination burned brightly behind her soft eyes. Sasuke was grinning like no tomorrow as he ran to the ring. Today is the day that I show father that I am just as good as Itachi, he thought to himself. Maybe if when I win my match, father will help me with my training. Sasuke's grin only got bigger at the thought of his father training with him, and not Itachi. Good luck, honey! Mikoto cheered to her youngest child. She glanced at her husband and frowned when she saw a small scowl on his face. Mikoto loved her family more than anything and enjoyed every minute that they were together. Because of Itachi's ninja rank, he would not be home for more than a day or so before he would be called out for another mission. So, Mikoto loved the limited amount of time when her whole family was together. Despite her joy of having Itachi home, her eldest son would hoard all the attention away from Sasuke. Fugaku would focus the whole day to training Itachi, completely ignoring his other son. When Itachi was away, the Uchiha clan head would then focus on thinking of new methods to train Itachi, again ignoring Sasuke. The only time that Mikoto could honestly say that her husband paid any real attention to Sasuke was when her youngest son successfully performed the Great Fireball Jutsu. And Fugaku only gave Sasuke a small smile after witnessing the technique. Mikoto's only wish was that her husband would give both of their children equal attention. She gave a silent, disappointed sigh. Are the two combatants ready? Mizuki asked as Hinata and Sasuke got into place. The two young ninja to be dropped into their respective families' fighting stances and traded glances. Alright then, Mizuki raised his arm again, just like before the first match. He was about to bring it down to begin the match when he spotted someone, in fact, several people, entering the academy grounds. Mizuki was quick to notice that the bandaged man leading a small group of ninja wearing A and B gear and masks. Danzo-sama, the white-haired Chunin stuttered in surprise. What are you doing here? Mizuki's sudden outburst drew everyone's attention to the new arrival and his entourage. Danzo only smiled and said, I thought that it would be a great idea if I were to come and see the potential that the future ninja of Konoha have to offer. He then made his way over to where the Uchiha were gathered and sat down next to the head of said clan while his root ninja spread out and slowly made their way closer to Naruto. Yes, sir, Mizuki said with a respectful bow to the council member, then raised his arm high into the air. Fight. He quickly dropped his arm and jumped out of the ring as the two students began their match. Burk. Naruto slowly looked down to see the blade of a large katana sticking out of his chest, along with a growing red spot. His eyes slowly widened in shock before slowly rolling into the back of his head and closing. No one saw the root ninja behind the young Uzumaki unsheath his weapon and thrust it into the boy's back. Nor did they see the other root ninja do the same to the skull, stomach, and several other parts of the little boy's body. Danzo had a small grin on his face as he watched Naruto die right in front of the whole body of the Ninja Academy. His grin got slightly bigger as he noticed not a soul either did not see the act or did not care. One of his followers looked over in his direction, waiting for a command. Danzo gave an unseen twitch with the middle finger of his right hand and the root ninja and Naruto's corpse suddenly vanished. Hinata quickly dodged a barrage of punches and kicks from the young Uchiha, and was able to get in several good hits of her own. Her training with Naruto was starting to pay off. Instead of trying to perfect the same fighting style that her family has used for many years, Hinata tried something different, combining the artistic and precise style of the Hyuga clan with the unpredictable and brash, brawling style of her blonde-haired love interest. The end result caused Sasuke to have absolutely no idea how to dodge her attacks or how to strike back. Every time he tried to hit her, Hinata would first twist and turn using the Hyuga style of taijutsu, then come straight at him with random strikes. Sasuke could barely get a hit on the girl, and the match had been going on for a good 15 minutes. Both combatants could feel the disappointed glares coming from their respective fathers. Thump thump thump. Both combatants and the spectators stopped whatever they were doing as a sound similar to dropping a boulder from the sky could be heard from a distance away. Thump 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 thud. The sound was getting closer and shouting could be heard. Thud thud thud. Nothing is working on this thing. A male voice shouted from about 2 blocks away. How the hell are we supposed to kill it? Nurea! An inhuman roar shook the ground and was quickly followed by the sounds of people screaming and shouting. Run! A woman's screaming voice rang out. Evacuate to the academy. What is that thing? Help me! The screaming got closer and louder. What the hell is going on? One of the Chunin instructors voiced as he made his way over to the entrance to the academy grounds. His eyes grew wide as the entire civilian population of Konoha was running directly towards the academy. Shit! Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr Suddenly, the bloody corpse of one of Danzo's root ninja slammed into the ground just a few feet away from the grounded Chunin. "My God!" the Chunin whispered as he gazed at the corpse, completely unaware of the approaching danger. Thud! Something heavy landed hard behind the Chunin. Before he could even react, something slammed into the side of his head and sent him through the academy's stone gateway and one of the academy's walls. It happened so fast that not even the mob, who could see what had hit the unfortunate ninja, could give any reaction. As everyone gazed in awe at the large hole in the wall until another loud crash brought everyone's attention back to the partially destroyed academy gate. Nureacha! A large, humanoid beast roared as it charged at the ninja families with its mouth wide open and its long, drool-covered tongue trailing behind it. The creature's large eyes locked onto its next target. The young platinum blonde, Yamanaka Ino. Instinctively, all of the experienced shinobi threw whatever weapons that they currently had at the moment, at the monster. Unfortunately, the hail of metal did nothing to slow down the quickly approaching creature. All of the weapons that had made contact and had stabbed into it appeared to be pushed out of the body by something underneath its dark skin. Ino let loose a loud scream as the monstrosity came closer. Its jaws opened wider and it leaned forward a little, just enough to be able to crush the little girl's skull with its powerful maw. At the last minute, just before the beast could devour the girl, her father, Yamanaka Inoichi, was able to grab her thin arm and yank out of the way. A loud snap was heard from the strong jaws crunching down on absolutely nothing. The creature came to a complete stop and turned its extended face at the blonde family. Its slightly parted maw dripped copious amounts of green drool as it eyed its prey with an inhuman amount of hunger. Suddenly it let loose a loud roar and stumbled forward as a giant shuriken embedded itself into the monster's back. It gave a short hop and turned itself around to face its attacker. "Hey freak," Mizuki said, smirking. In his left hand he was twirling another giant shuriken. "Damn, you are one ugly son of a bitch, aren't ya? With those teeth sticking out of your head and that tongue waving around everywhere, what the hell are you?" Whether the thing understood him or not, it leaned forward, causing the shuriken to pop out of his spine, and let loose another roar. Nureai Grureia. It then straightened itself. "We are Venom," the now recognized as a male monster bellowed. It appears that 2 years being sealed inside a young child increased his intelligence. Even by just a little bit. Amazing! Danzo thought as Venom charged at Mizuki. The silver-haired young man threw his weapon at the walking nightmare. With a swipe of one of his arms, Venom sent the spinning weapon veering off course and embedding itself into the academy's front gate. Before he could prepare another weapon, Mizuki soon found himself in the grip of two massive, clawed hands. One was grabbing him around the chest and was pinning his arms to his sides. The other was gripping him around the waist. It did not take a genius to figure out his future fate. But before he could proceed to tear Mizuki apart, Venom suddenly found both of his hands and his prey on the ground. He gave an agonized roar as dark purple blood poured out of the stumps that his wrists had now become. He swerved his head at the direction of the attack and snarled. There, standing between him and the crowd of parents, and their ninja-to-be children, were at least 2 or 3 dozen elite ANBU and the Hokage himself. His pipe was missing and his face was twisted into an angry scowl. "Venom!" The aged warrior spoke with a deadly seriousness. "Stand down now. The command was backed with enough sheer force that everyone except for the Hokage himself and Venom were brought down to their knees. Before Venom could give a reply, he was suddenly tackled by several of the elite ninja. The force of the tackle caught him by surprise, but he was able to remain standing. The ninja latched onto Venom's large form and tried to hold on while he began to roar and thrash about. The remaining ANBU each produced several feet of some kind of black chain. While Venom struggled to force the shinobi off of him, he was unaware of the other ninja quickly surrounding him. Suddenly the elite that were holding onto the macabre monster released him and leapt away just as about 20 thick black chains wrapped around his body. The ends of the chains had been staked into the ground with black metal stakes. Venom's arms were pulled to his sides and his legs were pulled together, causing him to fall forward. He roared, growled, and bellowed as he tried to break free, yet failed to do so. "Struggle as much as you want," the Hokage spoke as he walked over to his downed foe. "Both the chains and stakes are made of reinforced steel and virgin maiden hair. There is absolutely no way that you will be able to break your bonds." This fact did not deter Venom from at least trying. But as he tried to, movement out of the corner of his vision drew away Venom's attention from his bonds. It was Mizuki trying to crawl away. After he had been dropped, Mizuki had just sat there on the spot in complete terror, until now, that is. Venom snapped his head in the direction of the coward, opened his large maw, and shot out his slimy tongue directly at Mizuki. The prehensile appendage stretched reached its target, and quickly wrapped itself around the Chunin's right leg. Before he could even register that something was touching him, Mizuki was suddenly yanked towards Venom's gaping jaws. The next thing he knew was that there was incredible pain coursing through his lower body. He glanced down to see his entire right leg inside Venom's jaws. Mizuki screamed as Venom began to shake his head back and forth, like a dog with a stuffed teddy bear. "Damn it!" An ANBU cursed as blood flew over him and several others. The ANBU member grabbed a kunai and leapt onto Venom's shoulders. After adjusting the knife in hand, the ninja jabbed the weapon directly into Venom's left eye. There was a loud tearing sound as Venom tossed his head back and opened his mouth to let loose a pained roar. Mizuki went flying into the air but was caught by a fellow Chunin before he could hit the ground. His screaming continued though. His whole right leg was gone and was replaced at the hip with a bloody mess of torn bone and flesh. The ANBU leapt off of Venom while at the same time pulling his weapon out of Venom's skull. "Take him to my office. Now! And take Mizuki-san to the hospital," the Hokage ordered his followers before he disappeared in a plume of smoke. He was quickly followed by his subordinates. Simply amazing, Danzo thought to himself as he calmly walked out of the academy grounds. "Hokage-sama!" A newly arrived Chunin shouted as he landed next to his leader. "There's a message for you," he said as he handed over a single sheet of paper. The old man took the paper and his eyes slowly widened. Written in big black letters was the single sentence: "We are coming." When Sarutobi Hiruzen arrived at his office, the first thing he noticed was an unconscious and naked Naruto lying in the middle of the room. Several black chains hung limply around his young body. The second thing he noticed was his plush and expensive chair flying through the air, directly at him. Hiruzen ducked just in time before said chair embedded itself into the hallway wall behind him. The second he stood back up, he had to sidestep his incoming wooden desk, which was turned to wooden splinters upon impact with the wall and his chair. When the aged Sarutobi moved back in front of his office doorway, he noticed a third thing standing behind Naruto that subsequently caused a small trickle of blood to leak out of his nose. Standing before the Hokage was a completely bare female symbiote. She stood at just under 7.5 feet and had silver blue skin. Her pure silver hair reached the small of her back and appeared to wave without the need of wind or any other outside stimulus. Her eyes were large and white like Venom's, but lacked the tears around the edges and were smooth, unlike Venom's face, which was elongated and more muzzle-like. This symbiote's face was more human-like, except for her eyes and the millions of needle-like teeth in her jaws. She had 3 clawed toes on each of her feet, 2 faced forward while the third faced back. On each of her fingers, the female symbiote had sharp serrated claws. A thin layer of muscle could be seen underneath her uniquely colored skin, showing that she was healthy and thin. The creature's large, naked breasts stood firm and with dark blue. The only hair that the old man could see was the flowing mane on her head. "What the hell have you done?" the female symbiote screamed. "Do you have any fucking idea how lucky you and your pitiful village are to be alive right now? You had better be grateful that Venom didn't reach his level 2 form, or else there wouldn't be a village standing here at all." Hiruzen just stared at her. "Excuse me?" he mumbled slightly, his eyes still transfixed on her slightly jiggling breasts. She snapped her fingers a few times. "Our face is up here, you old pervert." When she saw that she had gained his attention, she continued, "We are the symbiote known as Payback, bitch. and you are in a hell of a load of trouble. The Hokage instantly went from old pervert mode to village leader mode at her words. What are you talking about? Let us get you up to speed on your predicament here, Grandpa, Payback snarled. While you were sitting in your pretty little office reading your porn, some old man wrapped up like a mummy decided to harm our poor Naruto-kun. If he did not have venom inside of him, he would be dead right now. She glared at the Hokage as his eyes widened in shock. Fortunately, the sudden shock of the attack forced Venom to take over his host and eat the persons responsible for the attack. Then he came to the academy. Around the time of his arrival, someone finally alerted you to what was going on. And then I had everything taken care of. Wrong, Payback yelled. You almost made things worse. How? The Hokage asked forcibly. He did not like this symbiote. She was acting too much like one of the Konoha council members. Payback gave a heavy sigh. Because of Venom's current lack of intelligence and self-control, he could have easily reached his level 2 form and destroy everyone and everything inside of this village. Well, it does not matter now. Naruto has returned to normal and the casualties were kept to a minimum. Our leader is still pissed off. What leader? Sarutobi asked as he pulled a folder out from within his robes and opened it to a marked page. You never mention any sort of leader or organization in this report. Payback chuckled darkly. Old fool, no one with even the smallest amount of intelligence would hand over all of their secrets, even to an ally. We only told you what you needed to know. Nothing else. There are at least 10,000 symbiotes that live on this little planet. You also mentioned a second form that Venom possesses. That's not in the report either, the Hokage shouted. As we just said, we only told you what you needed to know. Payback countered calmly. Sarutobi glared at Payback. Well then, I feel that since I am the one who has to give an explanation to this entire village on what the hell is going on, then shouldn't I be given at least some information that could be useful in formulating a good lie? He asked with as much authority in his voice that he could muster. Payback sighed and slightly turned her head so that she could see the window better. She then shrugged her shoulders. We've got an hour or so to spare. We guess we can have a friendly conversation with an old fart. It will do you some good to actually know what you're going to have to deal with soon. Payback then walked over to the unconscious Naruto, picked him up, carried him over to the coach in the room, sat down and placed the little boy's head onto her shapely lap. She then gave the naked boy a loving glance. He's so cute, she whispered to herself as she began to slowly stroke Naruto's hair. The Hokage just gave an indifferent stare. Payback stared back. What? She asked defensively. The old man simply raised one of his hands up in a nevermind-like fashion. Nothing. Please tell me about your home and leader. Very well, Payback said, and then cleared her throat. First, the home of the symbiotes. There is no real name for our home, but just like yours, it is also a hidden village. Obviously, we're not going to tell you where it is. That would ruin the whole point of having a hidden village. The Hokage gave a small scowl at the information. But we will tell you that it is hidden in a large mountain range. Only those that are allowed to enter our village either have a symbiote or have been given permission from our leader. And that's our entire home that you need to know. As for the leader of the symbiotes, that we can give you more information on. Hiruzen's grabbed a chair from within the closet inside his office and sat down. First off, our leader is female and goes by the name Empress. Empress is the most powerful symbiote on this planet, except for our Venero asterisk, and has the power to back up such a claim. She has the power to almost completely control anything that has even the smallest strand of symbiotic DNA inside of it. That is how she created our village. Empress very rarely has to use her awesome power. We all love and respect her too much to go against her orders, even if it means our deaths. Before Payback could continue, Sarutobi pulled out the note he had received earlier. What about this? Payback looked at the piece of paper for a moment, then calmly said, Oh, that? Empress, her top advisor, her best steed, and myself are coming in about a week. And before you ask, the reason behind the visit is quite simple. Because one of your village citizens is in possession of the most powerful symbiote in existence, Empress feels that she should come here to discuss with you about a possible treaty. Payback turned her head to the window and gazed down Yondaime Lane. Yondaime was the main street in Konoha and led a straight line from the village gate to the Hokage Tower. The street was about half a mile on either side. During the Kyuubi's attack on the village, when Gamabunta and the demon fox fought, the Kyuubi used an attack that sent the toad boss straight through the front gate of the village. He skidded across the ground in a straight line, destroying everything between the Kyuubi and the Hokage Tower. Before he could demolish the tower itself, Gamabunta came to a sudden halt with the hero on top of his large head. It was at that spot that the Yondaime Hokage was able to seal away the chakra monster, and so thus the stretch of land was left undeveloped and was given its name. You're lucky that this street is so wide, Payback said. And why would that be? Sarutobi asked with a smug tone. Payback turned her head back to face the Hokage. The corners of her large, toothy mouth curled up into a twisted smile. 'Cause Kraid is pretty big. She giggled. Hiruzen simply raised a confused eyebrow at her remark. Well, Payback said as she gently moved Naruto off of her, stood up and stretched. We guess that we'd better go now. She silently walked over to the window and opened it. Oh, before we forget, she said as she placed a foot on the windowsill. She turned her head a tad to look at the Hokage. Don't worry about Mummy Man. After we tell Empress about what he has done, we are sure that she will enjoy giving him a little bit of payback. She leapt from the windowsill, laughing with maniacal glee. Just as her laughter faded away, Kugamiya Madoka, the Hokage's personal secretary, burst through the door. Hokage-sama, she said in between gasps. She was not a ninja and appeared to have rushed over to the Hokage's office. The council is requesting a meeting immediately. All of the council members have already gathered in the meeting hall. They are awaiting your arrival, sir. Sarutobi looked over to her. Madoka was a young woman of about 25 and had the figure to prove it. But her youth was not the main reason that she was hired. Her exceptional ability as a secretary, however, was the reason. She had somehow been blessed by the gods with the amazing ability to complete at least a week's worth of paperwork in a single day. But alas, most of that paperwork still had to be done by the Hokage himself, so Madoka's awesome power was very rarely used. The other reason that she was hired was her unusual kindness. No one has ever seen her get angry at anyone or anything. That includes Naruto. One time Naruto pulled a little prank on Madoka that caused a bucket of ice-cold water to fall on top of her. She simply laughed it off and smiled the rest of the day. Thank you, Madoka-chan. Could you please do me a favor, and take Naruto-kun home and put him to bed, please? Sarutobi asked his secretary. She glanced over at the boy and smiled. No problem, Hokage-sama. I'll have him at home and in bed before you're out of your meeting. The Hokage thanked her and left his office. As he made his way to the meeting hall, he tried to think of how he was going to handle the chaos that he knew was going to happen. What the hell was that thing? One Yamanaka Inoichi demanded the moment the Hokage stepped through the door. The whole meeting area was abuzz with conversation. Please calm yourself, Hyuga Hayashi's emotionless voice said. Shove it, Hyuga. Your daughter wasn't almost killed by some freaky demon from hell, Inoichi shot back. Inoichi! The Hokage's voice boomed, causing all conversation to come to a halt and the room to go silent. The Yamanaka clan head glared at the Hokage for a moment, then took a deep breath. I apologize, he said. Despite Inoichi-san's temper, Hokage-sama, Yutane Koharu interjected, we all would like to know what this great black demon is. Sarutobi cleared his throat. I do not have any clue as to what that monster was. I do know that it has been destroyed by my personal squad of elite Anbu. That is all fine and dandy there, Hokage-sama, but beyond its destruction, did you learn anything? Koharu asked again. The urgency in her voice caused Hiruzen to raise an eyebrow. Like I said, no information about the beast could have been obtained. But I feel that it had some relationship with Orochimaru. This caused the room to once again be filled with murmurs and whispers. The thought of Orochimaru creating something as fearsome as that monster was enough to cause some of the clan members to think of upping their clan defenses. Why do you say that, sir? From what information we have gathered so far, there has been very little activity involving your past students, including both Tsunade and Jiraiya, Fugaku said. Sarutobi just stared at all of the clan heads and his old teammates for a moment. The tum, he said with a smile. Everyone fell over at his blunt answer and his apparent joy at figuring out a resemblance between the Snake Master and the Black Demon. Please be serious, Sarutobi. Mitokado Hamura chastised his old friend. Again, Hiruzen cleared his throat. All joking aside, we have a very important matter to attend to. Everyone's attention was now back on the Hokage. In about a week, a very important person shall be arriving into our village. I want everyone here to have all of their closest family members and their strongest clan members to be in front of the Hokage Tower by then. He turned to the civilian part of the council. As for the non-ninja council members, I want you all to gather your families and best wares at the same location. I don't want any foul-ups. This person has enough power to completely destroy this village without as much as a flick of a finger. Be prepared. I don't know the exact time when they will arrive, so be at the location in the early morning. Am I understood? Yes, sir, Hokage-sama, everyone said. After several more hours of random matters that needed to be addressed, including the ever so popular what to do with the demon child, the meeting was finally over. As all of the council members left the room, Sarutobi's eyes fixed themselves on Danzo's limping form. Just what are you planning to do to Naruto? What do you know? He thought to himself. Suddenly the head of the Nara clan walked up to the village leader. Hokage-sama, Shikaku began. Could you please get a table in here? It's so troublesome to just stand in here for so long, I get tired. I'll see what I can do. For the next week, the whole of Konoha was abuzz about the news of an important individual arriving to the hidden village. All of the merchants and shop owners cleaned up their places of business until they were spotless, and they set out their best, if not most expensive, wares. The many restaurants within the village were also hard at work, cleaning, prepared exotic dishes, and forcing their staff to work as hard as humanly, or ninja-y, as possible. Even some of the common civilian villagers were spiffing up their homes to try and impress the coming visitor. But the people working the most were the many clans of the village and the academy. The teachers and students were hard at work with their studies and teachings. The teachers tried their hardest to get as much of the rest of the year's work done as fast as possible, and the students were studying as hard and fast as possible. They were trying as hard and fast as they possibly could so that they could both be prepared for the arrival and to impress their parents as the earliest graduation class the academy has ever had. Though they got a lot of work done, they still had about a month or two of work that still needed to be done. All of the clans worked in their respected professions and styles of combat in an attempt to impress the VIP that was to arrive. The Aburame clan had been both training the future heir of the clan, Shino, and had been hard at work maintaining their special collection of insects, which was not only the largest collection with over 500 million different species of insect and arachnid, it was also one of the best tourist spots in the entire hidden village. The training that young Shino had to go through mainly consisted of him using his Kikaichu in the many known assassination techniques that the Aburame clan used. The Akimichi clan had done the same with their future heir, Choji. His training mainly consisted with him eating large amounts of food, then converting the calories gained into a massive amount of chakra, which was then to be used for his family's many different body enlargement jutsu. Choji did not complain. He was too busy eating. The Akimichi clan also had to prepare the many restaurants that they owned. Since the clan owned most of the restaurants within Konoha, they had every single store fix up the most elaborate and expensive meals possible. The Hyuga clan had been spending the week training the two young daughters of Hyuga Hayashi. While both were trained by the best in the family, Hinata failed to live up to the expectations her father had for her, while her younger sister, Hinabi, passed all expectations. Since Hinabi was receiving most of the attention, Hinata was given enough time to sneak out of the Hyuga compound and visit and train with Naruto. Her training with the hyperactive host helped a great deal with her unique style of fighting. The dog-using Inuzuka clan was also hard at work with their own family. Tsum and the rest of the clan had been busy training Kiba, Hana, and the clan's many canines. The clan was also very busy in maintaining the Inuzuka Dog Park, another of Konoha's greatest tourist attractions. For some reason the Nara clan focused more on attending to the family's several herd of deer than on the clan heir's training. Shikamaru did not complain once. The Sarutobi clan focused more on the maintenance of the village than training. But Konohamaru did not let up once in his many attempts to best his grandfather. The Uchiha clan worked just as hard as their rival, Hyuga clan. Almost every available member spent every waking moment with Itachi, training him non-stop in every single ability that every single clan member knew, forbidden or not. Since Itachi was getting all of the attention, that left little Sasuke all alone to train BT himself. Almost. Luckily, his mother was kind enough to train her youngest child instead of training Itachi. Sasuke would have preferred his father help with his training, but he still felt pleased that at least he was being given a chance to train with somebody, and not train alone like usual. The Yamanaka clan worked on the many different species of flowers that they had in the family shop. They also worked alongside the Inuzuka clan to pretty up the dog park. Ino focused more on the flower shop than on her own training. Finally, the day arrived. Yondiame Lane was cleared of all merchant stands and people. The buildings and alleyways were packed full with people. Civilian and ninja alike could not wait for the VIP to arrive. The Hokage, important clan members and shop owners, and the council members were all gathered in front of Hokage Tower. They had arrived at the location at around 8 o'clock in the morning, and had been waiting around for about an hour. Most of the well-refined clans showed no sign of annoyance, while others appeared much more on edge. Thwump! The muffled sound of something large impacting the ground was heard from far away. Nobody paid any attention to the noise, even after several more were heard. Thwump bump! Thwump bump! Thwump bump! Now the sound of something heavy but soft could be heard along with the thumps. Then it appeared just over the horizon. And it was big. It was obviously some sort of giant reptile-like creature. That thing's bigger than Gamabunta, Sarutobi thought. It stood on two thick legs that were like tree trunks. Each of its massive legs ended in a large three-toed foot that was spread wide to hold the massive weight of the monster. Each toe ended in a solid, thick claw. Behind it was a long, thick tail that was dragged on the ground. The most prominent feature of the beast was its massive gut. Its stomach was so big that it was dragging across the ground. Not even the fattest Akamichi using their expansion jutsu would come anywhere close to the mass of the creature's girth. On its stomach were three tight circular groups of spikes going straight down. Each group was evenly spaced vertically. The arms of the beast were quite long and thin compared to the rest of its actual body size. Each arm ended in two long, skinny, triple-jointed fingers with a large wicked-looking, sickle-like claw on each finger. Its neck was very short but thick. The mouth of the creature was long and alligator-like and was filled with razor-sharp teeth and had a single, small horn on the snout. Two wing-like shells were on the sides of its head. A crown of spikes adorned the back of the behemoth's cranium with a long row of spines running from the back of its head, down its back, and ending at the tip of its giant tail. It had three large white eyes that were in the shape of water droplets. The chin, front of the neck and stomach, and the underside of its tail was covered in smooth tan, leather-like skin. Its arms, legs, back of its tail and its back, along with the beast's head were all covered in dark green scales. The color and shape of his eyes was enough of an indicator to Sarutobi that this thing too was a symbiote. Sitting on top of the being's head, directly behind its eyes, were three large, crate-like objects. The first was more like a golden bed with a golden canopy with dark purple DS. The second was just a very large wooden crate, about as big as a single-story building. The final object was small, white and looked like a medical burn tent. The beast let loose a mighty roar. Not a sound could be heard from the inhabitants of Konoha as they stared at the monster. The villagers had been told that the VIP would arrive on a large mount, they just never thought that it would be this large. The beast continued to make its way until it reached the front gate. It glanced down at the obstruction in its path for a few moments, then continued right through the gate. The structure was reduced to splinters and rubble as the behemoth marched right on through, as if the gate was not even there. It continued its way through Yondaime Lane. The people that lined the sides of the street were forced to either get out of the way or be crushed under the monster's massive girth. The beast finally came to a stop several feet away from where the Hokage was standing and let loose another ground-shaking roar. Suddenly 3 figures leapt out of the golden structure and landed directly in front of the giant lizard. All 3 figures were wearing different colored robes that had large hoods that blocked any view of their actual bodies. One wore a silver robe, the other a very dark, almost black, purple. The final figure's robe was a royal purple. The 3 figures slowly made their way over to the Hokage's group, with the royal purple figure in the lead, and gave a short collective bow. The others bowed in return and the Hokage stepped forward. As the Sandaime Hokage of Konohagakure, I would like to personally welcome you to the village. I hope that you enjoy your stay here and that you will be able to experience all that my village has to offer, he said with a smile. The lead figure nodded, then turned to the other 2, who quickly leapt back onto the behemoth's head, right next to the burned tent and the wooden crate. The dark purple-robed figure grabbed the grate, while the silver-robed figure grabbed the burned tent and the bed. The figure dressed in silver leapt back to the ground holding the medical tent and the bed. The other person, however, somehow was able to heft the giant wooden grate onto his/her back, then leapt down, with an earth-shaking impact. The ground cracked underneath the sudden weight. Then the figure in purple spoke in a slightly distorted female voice. "Thank you, Kraid," she said to the giant reptile. "You may now return home. You shall receive your payment after you return." Kraid bellowed before he started to back out of Yondaime Lane. He had to walk backwards until he was out of the village. He then turned around and slowly made his way back down the street. After Kraid was out of sight, the woman in royal purple turned her attention back to the old village leader. "Hokage-sama." She spoke with authority but kindly. "May we please use your village's hospital?" she asked sweetly. "We shall also take your advice and browse around your village. Since we will be here for at least a week, we shall discuss the terms of our alliance in 4 days. Agreed?" Before Sarutobi could say anything, Koharu decided to jump in. "Now wait just a minute," she voiced. "We know that you're important and all, but just who do you think you are to demand of our Lord Hokage?" Hamura was just barely quick enough to pull his old teammate out of the way as a large curved blade slammed itself onto the ground right where she was standing. The blade was jutting out of the left sleeve of the dark purple-robed figure. "Don't ever demand from our great leader," the figure growled in a slightly older female voice. Her action caused nearly every ninja in the area to get prepared for a fight. Sarutobi quickly gave the signal to stand down. "I apologize for my counsel's rude behavior." He shot a nasty look at Koharu. I see no problem with you spending some time relaxing before business. Please enjoy your stay. Thank you, Hokage-sama, Empress replied. And with that, we shall take our leave. Empress and her entourage walked away and everyone else returned to their normal day routine. As the three newcomers strolled down one of the village's many market-filled streets, the individual leading the small group whispered, "We shall observe him tonight for any signs of bonding." "Yes, ma'am," the other two responded. Meanwhile, in a small town just outside of Fire Nation, Mitaka Chizuru was currently washing dishes in her kitchen while her husband, Moyasu, and her two children, her 8-year-old, Ai, and her 3-year-old, Teo, were out at the market. She was just finishing up with the last pan in the sink when she noticed her husband and daughter run across their yard. Chizuru caught sight of something white and about the size of a small child was slung over the shoulder of Moyasu. Chizuru threw her dish rag into the sink and dashed to her home's front door just as her husband burst through. His face was stricken with panic and fear. He ran over to the living room couch and set the white object down. Then Chizuru got a good look at the object. As she had noticed before, the object was completely white and about the size of a 16-year-old teenager, and the same shape as her 3-year-old son. The arms of the object were fused to the chest and held together in a fashion like that of a straitjacket, and the legs were held together. The thing lacked a face but instead had 3 small dents in its head where the eyes and mouth should have been. "What's going on? Where is Teo?" she asked her husband with barely hidden panic. Moyasu gave his wife a grave look before whispering a nightmarish response, "This is Teo." Chizuru's eyes widened and began to tear up as she watched the figure on the couch suddenly began to violently spasm for a few seconds before settling down. What happened?" Chizuru asked after the shock of information had finally died down a little. "I have no clue, dear," Moyasu said. "All I know is that Teo was like that after I left the grocer's. I had taken Ai in with me while I allowed Teo to play outside with some of his friends. After exiting the place, I couldn't find our son and began to look around. Then a friend of his came running over to me and started showing that something had happened to Teo. I followed the kid and found him like this inside an alleyway. The kid said that he had gone to find a ball that had been lost when they heard a scream. They ran over and found him." Chizuru listened to her husband's explanation while Teo's body started twitching again. "I have already called the doctor. He should be here in a few minutes," he finished. Suddenly, the thing that was once their son sat straight up and appeared to be struggling. "It's like his arms are being held in a straitjacket of his own skin." Moyasu mumbled softly to himself as he watched his son struggle, and fail, to break out of his fleshy bonds. Ai was quickly swept up into her mother's arms before she could see the thing actually move, and was carried into the other room while Chizuru chanted, "It'll be okay," over and over again. Her chanting was more for herself than for her daughter. The sound of flesh tearing and blood and vomit splattering on her hardwood floor sent Chizuru running back into the living. Her husband was hunched over the splattered bile, holding his gut. Chizuru looked over at her son to see what had caused the sound and Moyasu's reaction. Teo's legs had been pulled away from each other in such a violent manner that the legs looked bent and the feet faced somewhat inward. Red and purple blood covered the floor and dripped from the slowly healing white flesh. The second that the white had regrown onto his legs, Teo slowly stood up, while still struggling with his flesh. He slowly shambled and struggled over to the open door. He let out a long, drawn-out groan. "Vinanumim," then stumbled out the door and slowly made his way into town. "Ugh! This is so boring," a young blonde-haired, drop-dead gorgeous woman whined. She was wearing a light blue skin-tight, full-body suit that showed off every little detail of her luscious curves, including her massive breasts. She had her long blonde hair in a single ponytail. She was currently sitting on the roof of a building across from Naruto's apartment with 3 other full-grown women. The night air was cooling off the heated rooftops, making the stakeout bearable. One of the women put her binoculars down and glanced at the blonde. She had a similar skin-tight suit as the blonde except her suit was a dark pink in color. Her hair was almost the same shade of pink as her suit, and was held in 2 long pigtails. Her breasts and butt, though, were pretty flat and could have been compared to those belonging to a young Haruna. "We thought that you of all people, Samus, would enjoy a few hours of uninterrupted spying on your pedophiliac dream boy," she said. "What did you fucking say?" Samus jumped up and screamed at the pinkette. Her face was flushed with anger and several blue-silver tentacles were sticking out of her back and waving behind her wildly. "Well, at least we're not a flat ironing board, like you, Marta." She pumped out her chest to prove her point. Marta looked at Samus's breasts, then at her own and lightly cupped them. "That was mean," she said with a sniffle. Her sad face quickly turned into one of anger as a large, slightly curved, bone-yellow blade replaced her right arm from the elbow down. Take that back, now! She yelled. Let's go, bitch, Samus said as both of her arms turned into blue-silver blades. Payback! Revenge! You two are cousins and should not fight. Settle down, now! The Empress demanded. She was still in her full symbiote form. She was 6 feet tall and had almost the same features as Payback. Her feet thought were more human-like, except having only 4 clawed toes instead of 5 on each foot. Her body was the same royal purple as the robe she left at the hotel. Her long hair and were a lighter shade of purple though. Her eyes were the same symbiotic white as every other symbiote, and the same basic shape but were more curved at the back ends. The top of Empress's eyes each had a long, thin white antenna that ended in a small tear-shaped bulb. Each antenna was as long as Empress was tall. Yes, ma'am. We're sorry. The 2 normal people apologized with their heads hung down in shame. All 3 turned their attention back to the semi-open window that led to Naruto's bedroom. The blonde boy was currently asleep in his bed, and thus oblivious to the 3 peepers gazing into his room. The group had been waiting all night for any sign of Venom bonding with Naruto, but had yet to see any. Also, the sun was starting to rise and the people of Konoha were beginning to wake up and start their busy day of civilian stuff. Lady Empress, Marta/Revenge began. We think that we should start to head back now. The humans will surely spot us if we don't leave now. She was given no reply. Empress was staring very intently at Naruto's bedroom window and gave no sign of even hearing her advisor's words. She slowly stood up, without taking her eyes off the window, then she dived directly for the window. She swung her left arm just in time to force the window completely open before landing beside Naruto's bed. Marta and Samus were quick to follow their leader. Empress stood over the sleeping form of Naruto. Payback, she said. Did you not say that this boy had another creature sealed inside of him before you gave him Lord Venom? Yes, Lady Empress. On the very day of his birth, Uzumaki Naruto had the Kyuubi no Yoko sealed inside of him. When we gave Lord Venom to him, we had assumed that the fox would have been absorbed by Lord Venom, and he would have bonded with Naruto. Samus explained. We see. Empress mumbled to herself before throwing the blanket off Naruto, then tearing off his button-up pajama shirt. She scanned his torso until her eyes set upon the unique seal on the child's stomach. She lowered her head until her eyes were just inches away from Naruto's gut and the seal. Empress hears Samus give a jealous huff. Her eyes slowly narrowed until they were nothing but slits, while her antennas swung over her body and the tips lightly touched the dead center of the seal. Somewhere in the land of fire. In a large camp just outside a village, a massive parade of bandits were celebrating their most current victory. The thieving army had just raided 2 local villages and had taken everything ranging from little girls to the village leader's bed sheets. They were currently drinking every last drop of alcohol that the villages had and were also preparing a fun night with the village's women. The leader of the bandits was sitting in a large throne-like chair wrapped in animal skins and had one of his loyal sluts sitting right next to him. The leader himself was a bear of a man, and was thus the largest figure in the massive group. He was laughing and drinking with some of his men when the group suddenly parted to let 2 more men, and their nightly whores, through. One of them had a human-shaped, white object thrown over his shoulder. What the hell do we have here? The man-bear grunted. Duno, the horrific-looking man carrying the thing, said as he tossed it to the ground in front of his leader. We found this thing laying on the ground while we were fucking those sluts, he said while pointing at the 2 women. The women didn't show any sign of hearing the man. Yeah, the other man said. I thought that it could be worth something, so we decided to bring it back to you, boss, he said, sticking his scared chest out in pride. The big boss stood up and walked over to the laying thing and gave it a hard kick to the head. Do you have any idea what that thing is, dear? His whore asked. The large man turned his head to his companion and shouted. Shut up, bitch. I'm trying to fucking figure that out. Such a fucking retard. He mumbled the last part to himself as he gave the thing another hard kick. Slowly, the thing began to move. It was just a little twitch, but it caught the attention of one of the more observant women being held hostage. She was around 35 years of age and had her 5-year-old daughter tied up right next to her. It was obvious to her and nearly anybody with a brain cell that the lying figure was actually a person that was trapped inside some kind of straitjacket/torture device. Boss was about to give another hard kick to the white thing when the woman decided to speak up. Please stop, she shouted. The boss and his many men turned to the bound woman and several began to chuckle lecherously. The big man in charge walked over to her and harshly grabbed a fistful of her hair and yanked her up to his eye level. And why the hell should I? He barked at the woman. He was completely unaware of the figure slowly starting to rise behind him. Boss. Lackey number 1 spoke up. I think that you'll want to see this. Boss did a full turnaround, yanking the woman with him, and saw the white figure slowly rise to its knees. Suddenly, the figure began to violently struggle with its own straight-jacket-like skin. Its body twitched every which way as it stumbled onto its broken legs and feet. "What the hell?" Boss said as he dropped the woman and approached the now wobbling and struggling figure. He pulled out his special-made bow gun that had been strapped to his back. What made the bow gun so special was that it was able to fire half a dozen arrows at one pull of the trigger. A/N. I know they probably don't have these in the Naruto universe. Just go along with it. Whatever the hell it is, it's gonna die. He then launched 3 of his loaded arrows directly into the face of the monster. The thing stumbled back as purple and red blood oozed out of its new wounds. The thing let out a loud groan as it got its footing and started to stumble towards the bandit boss, the arrows still sticking out of its head. The rest of the bandits grabbed their weapons but did not approach the monster out of fear. None of them had ever faced something that would not die after an arrow to the head. The boss started to panic as he unloaded more arrows into the slowly approaching monster. He kept firing and reloading until he had run out of ammo. Most of his arrows actually missed the creature, and several had hit his own men who were now either dead, dying, or had run away. Only a few of his most loyal compatriots, and sluts, still stayed to watch and to protect their stolen goods, including the still bound women. "Damn it!" he shouted as he threw his bowgun at the monster. The weapon slammed into the thing's bound chest, but it did not slow. It continued its slow pass until it was only a few feet away from its victim. Its struggling slowly came to a halt as it stood in front Manbear. It tilted its head back so that its face was looking directly to the night sky. The creature let out another low groan as something appeared to be forcing itself out of where the monster's mouth should have been. With a spray of purple and red blood, a long, thin, red tongue burst out of the creature's face. The appendage wiggled around a bit before being thrust forward, directly between the big bandit boss's eyes. His eyes widened in both shock and fear as a light green liquid leaked out through the gap between his flesh and the monster's, followed by a light suction sound. Boss simply stood still as his brain was liquefied and sucked up through the tongue-like appendage. The bound women were too terrified to even scream as one of their after several minutes of the suction sound, the creature tore its tongue out of the man's skull and began to struggle again. The bandit leader's lifeless body fell to the ground with a dull thud. Small tears leaking blood could be seen in the monster's straight-jacket-like torso as it struggled. The tears continued to get larger along with the creature's size, up to 6.5 feet in height, until the monster's entire body was drenched in its own unique blood. Then, in a sudden explosion of blood, 2 long arms tore themselves free from their fleshy confines. The arms were rather thin yet very well muscled. They were completely white except for the creature's claws and fingers up to the middle joint, which were black. A loud bellow escaped the throat of the beast as another large tear formed that hole in its head. It too tore apart in a spray of blood as a pure black fangs jutted out of the tears. One of the hands came up to wipe away the blood to reveal the massive, creepy, black fanged mouth with the long red tongue hanging out. Slowly 2 more tears formed above the mouth. These tears got longer until they were nearly touching each other on the front and back of the monster's head. These tears slowly opened, in a less dramatic fashion, and revealed 2 completely black eyes. The flesh that had housed the arms was absorbed back into the creature's body, and showed the lean, muscled figure underneath. The creature quickly cleaned itself off of the blood and slowly turned towards the remaining members of the bandit gang with a large, disgusting grin. "The hell is that?" the bandit boss's primary slut whispered to one of her fellow whores. "I am anti-venom." The white beast spoke slowly. Its voice was gruff and slightly distorted. Its already widely grinning mouth grew wider and more of its even, black fangs could be seen. It turned completely to face the tiny gang. "And I'm still hungry," he growled as he launched himself at his prey. Back in Naruto's room. "Done," Empress said with tired gasp. For the past few hours, the leader of the symbiote horde had been hard at work trying to remove the complicated seal on Naruto's gut. But as hard as she tried to rid the boy of his tattoo, her efforts were in vain as the seal was beyond her knowledge of the human art known as Fuinjutsu. Before Marta or Samus could say anything, Empress ordered them to follow her and return to the hotel that they were staying at. The group had taken to the rooftops and had to move at a high speed to avoid any detection. When they arrived, Samus slumped down in a chair while Marta and Empress sat down in a more dignified manner. "So, did it work?" Samus asked. "No," was all Empress said. The tone she said it in was of one that said drop it. Never in all her life had Empress had ever had so much trouble with anything. Ruling over Egypt wasn't even this hard. Empress thought with a loud sigh, as she held her head in her hands. The bonding process has been slowed down a great deal because of that seal on his stomach. We would have to say that in the next day, or so the benefits should start appearing. She looked outside at the morning sun. In fact, he should some of our kind's power right about now. she finished with an unusual smile. Samus simply shrugged her shoulders and stood up. We're gonna go check up on our children, she stated. Do either of you want to come? We have to get Lord Venom's package ready for when his host awakens, Marta stated in her normally emotionless voice before grabbing her rope and leaping out the open window. Unfortunately, we cannot come with you to see my child and your infant. We must go and make friendly with the scum that ruled this maggot-infested rat-hole, Empress said with an annoyed sigh. Please tell my daughter that we'll see her soon and that we am still searching for the bastards responsible for her condition. Samus simply shrugged her shoulders again and grabbed her rope, then leapt out the same open window as Marta and made her way over to the hospital. She arrived and easily slipped past the employees without being noticed. Samus arrived at the room that the burn tent had been placed into and silently entered. She walked over to the burn tent and pulled apart the curtains to reveal 2 medical beds. Marta quickly arrived at the location that they had left the large wooden crate, an empty training field. When she arrived at the location, she couldn't help a pleasant chill travel down her spine and a small trail of drool to slip down her chin as the heavenly scent of the crate's contents filled her nostrils. She quickly wiped the drool away with a faint tint of red on her cheeks that was a tad out of place on her stoic face. She walked over to the crate and checked it for any damage that could have occurred during the trip to Konoha. Not finding any, Marta looked around her surroundings to make sure that the coast was clear. After, she took a very deep inhale and her whole body shuddered almost violently. We are sure that Lord Venom is going to like his gift. She inhaled deeply and shuddered once again. Yes. He shall. Hinata gave a quiet yawn as the rays of the morning sun slowly woke her from the realm of dreams. The girl looked at the small clock that she kept on the nightstand beside her bed. I've got a few hours before Naruto-kun wakes up and class starts. I guess I'll go take a nice bath and read my new book, she thought to herself with an unusual and sleepy giggle. She slowly rose from her bed and sleepily dragged her feet to her private bathroom and slowly stripped of her night clothes as she made her way. On the way, she noticed the date on the calendar. Oh my, it's Naruto-kun's birthday. I'll have to make him my special ramen for him later. Hinata entered her bathroom and quickly cleaned herself using the shower and filled her bathtub with warm water. After she verified that the water temperature was to her liking, the Hyuga heiress then reached underneath her bathroom sink and pulled out a rather large and bulky magazine that she had bought a few months ago, titled, The Shy Girl's Guide to Gaining Your Idiot Love Interest's Attention. So far it has been helpful to her. Like, for example, one of the magazine's tips said, almost any male thinks that the shy, stuttering, and blushing personality is cute, but it can also give the wrong impression. Learn when to act shy and when to act sexy. Hinata grabbed her magazine and got into the bathtub. She quickly got as relaxed as she could before opening her magazine and turned to the tips section of the bulky magazine. She quickly scanned over the million or so different tips as she soaked in the warm tub water. She continued to skim through the thick magazine until she reached a set of tips that caught her interest. So, she started to read and enjoy her pleasant morning. At Naruto's apartment, Naruto tossed and turned violently in his sleep as thousands of different images flashed inside of his mind. Each image had countless amounts of blood, gore, and death. Men, women, and children were seen dead or dying in the most horrid of ways. He was soaked in sweat as, finally, he awoke with a start and shoot straight up in his bed. For a second he just sat there, trying to catch his breath. He lowered his head and held it in his hands and lightly shook it. That was way too real, he thought while he wiped the sweat of his brow. He tried to rid his mind of the scary dream, yet failed. One of the less gruesome scenes flashed before his eyes. A mother was carrying her 7-year-old daughter and was running down a long, dark hallway. The mother had tears running down her face and was trying to whisper soothing words to her frightened child. The child was staring at the dark hallway behind her mother and was crying softly as a loud, metallic scrap was heard, followed by a loud thump, which was followed by another loud thump, then the loud metallic SC from before sounded again. Suddenly, a small speck of light appeared at the end of the hallway. The woman had a look of relief on her face as she pushed herself onward, towards the light. The scrapping and thumping continued behind her. She was nearly there when a large, great knife came out of the darkness and impaled both of the females through the mother's back and the child's stomach. Both were motionless for a few moments until the giant blade was slowly pulled out of the female corpses, and the very end of the blade fell to the ground with a heavy thunk. The great knife was slowly dragged back into the darkness, and the image faded away. The blonde chakraless kid got out of bed and began his morning routine when he saw the date on his little calendar next to his bedroom door. His face broke into a giant grin as he saw that today was his birthday. That meant that he was going the chance to eat some of Hinata's special ultimate super awesome mega ramen. Naruto couldn't wait to meet up with the blue-haired girl and so sped up his normal morning routine. Naruto left his home earlier than normal and was walking in a random direction. Hinata-chan might still be asleep. he thought to himself. He strolled down the street and began to head to his special morning training. Ever since Naruto's chakra suddenly disappeared, Iruka was kind enough to ask his old friend, Might Guy, for some help. Knowing that Guy and his young student, Rock Lee, had to deal with a similar problem, it just seemed obvious to the academy teacher that the green monster would make a good instructor to the blonde host. Just as he was about to make a turn around a street, Naruto was nearly trampled by 3 frantic-looking men on top of speeding horses. Naruto was about to shout at the men for being asses when he suddenly stopped all non-vital movement. Nothing moved, not even the smallest twitch of a muscle could be seen. Slowly, very slowly, Naruto's eyes got wider and his nose started to twitch. His head slowly turned in the direction that an unknown, wonderfully intoxicating, scent was emitting from. In an instant, Naruto was already 6 blocks away from where he had been standing. It had only taken him a third of a second to move. The scent was driving him crazy. He had absolutely no self-control or any intention of gaining any. He had completely forgotten about the men on horses, where he lived. He even forgot about his few precious people. He forgot about the Hokage, Iruka, Guy, Sakura, Lee. He even forgot about Hinata. He dashed all across the village. His nose followed the increasingly stronger scent. His legs moved at a blinding pace as he got closer and closer to the scent. After an hour or so of running, he finally arrived at Training Ground 6 and was forced into a long skid as he tried to stop before slamming into the biggest wooden crate he had ever seen. When he finally came to a halt before the crate, Naruto stared at the sheer size of the thing. The crate had to be as big as the apartment building he lived in, or so he thought. The size of the box wasn't what caught off his attention, just most of it. The rest of Naruto's adolescent mind was set on the large words written in capital letters and sprayed onto the crate with black paint. The letters read, Happy Birthday Uzumaki Naruto. From Empress, Revenge, Payback, and the whole of the symbiote horde. Naruto completely disregarding the weird message and turned his focus back onto the intoxicating smell that was coming from the crate. Without any hesitation, Naruto grabbed one of the sides of the crate and began to try and pull it open by force. Unfortunately for our blonde friend, the planks of wood would not budge and relinquish whatever was inside. He continued to pull and tug on the wood until he started to get angry, then he decided to punch the massive crate. To his surprise, one whole side of the crate simply fell away to reveal a heavenly sight. Inside, and spilling out of the crate, was a mountain of nothing but pure chocolate. Naruto's knees weakened at the scene as he was hit with the blast of the intoxicating scent. For some unknown reason, Naruto could not think of anything else except for the gift before him. Not even Kami's gift to man, ramen, compared to the sight in front of his young eyes. And so, he dropped to his knees and cried. Naruto cried at the beautiful scene of the mountain of chocolate. After a second or two of the waterworks, Naruto jumped to his feet and dove head first into the giant pile of sweet sugar. He shoved handful after handful into his mouth, not even bothering to chew, Naruto simply swallowing the chunks whole. The taste was beyond anything Naruto had ever tasted. Not even the rarest, most delicious ramen ever could compare to the sheer pleasure the chocolate had on his taste buds. In a surprisingly short amount of time, the great mountain turned into a hill, then into a pile, and finally was completely gone, disappeared inside the young boy's gut. After Naruto had eaten the giant pile of sweets, he leaned back against one of the crate's walls and let out a satisfied belch. Naruto sat there for a few moments, and allowed his meal to digest before looking up at the sky and the sun's current position. His eyes widened as he realized what time it was. Damn it, he cursed, I'm gonna be late for class. And with that, the hyper host shot off in the direction of the academy. Thanks to the extreme training that Guy had put Naruto through, he was able to make it to the academy and into Iruka's classroom before the bell rang. He quickly got into his seat, next to Hinata, and plopped down into the chair, panting heavily from the run. Seeing that her not-so-secret crush was late, which in itself was unusual, but that he was also hot, sweaty, and looking just too sexy for her to tear her eyes away. Iruka entered his classroom and began the class by explaining some random stuff about chakra that Naruto paid absolutely no attention to. All Naruto heard was, blah blah chakra. Blah blah important. Blah blah Naruto pay attention. And not much more. So Naruto followed the narrow way and quickly fell asleep with his head on his desk. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto slowly waded through the waist-deep water that flooded his mind. This was not the first time Naruto had entered his scattered brain. Being a ninja required that one must have total control over both body and mind. Thus every ninja to be must enter their own minds and understand and interpret their own thoughts and emotions. Naruto had no clue as to what his thoughts and emotions meant and just fooled around. Today, though, he decided to explore a bit into the dark depths of his mind. As he trudged onward, Naruto noticed weird black veins covering the walls of the sewer as he progressed deeper into the darkness. Naruto continued onward until he appeared in front of a massive gate that was completely covered in the strange black veins, except for a small slip of paper with the kanji for Seo written on it. He stared up at the structure with wide eyes. From how much he could see, Naruto had to guess that the gate had to be bigger than the Hokage mountain. If the child had been paying attention, he would have noticed the black beast that was standing just a few feet away from him. If he had been paying any attention at all, he would have seen the monster's mouth turn into a sinister grin. If he had been paying even the smallest amount of attention, Naruto would have noticed the glob of black goo flying directly for his blonde head. The black goo splattered into Naruto's surprised face. Before he could even begin to struggle, a rush of information flooded his mind. Naruto suddenly snapped awake, and with perfect timing. Iruka had just finished the lesson and was allowing all of his students to go home early, after lunch of course, because of the festival tonight that was meant to celebrate the defeat of the Kyuubi no Yoko. Naruto gave out a loud yawn and turned to Hinata, who was already reaching into her bag for something. The rest of the class was filing out of the room at a steady pass, leaving the 11-year-old girl and the now 12-year-old boy alone in the classroom. Naruto didn't have to wait long to find out what Hinata was reaching for. Hinata pulled from her pack a giant bento box that was wrapped in a white cloth. Naruto took the lunchbox with wide eyes and a drooling mouth. It was the biggest lunchbox Hinata had ever given him. Today was turning out to be a great day. First Naruto had that giant crate full of chocolate, and now he was going to have the best ramen ever. Though, he wasn't going to tell the folks at Ichiraka that, of course. Thanks, Hinata-chan, Naruto said, grabbing the giant box. He took the extra chopsticks that Hinata had packed along with her own lunch box and began to eat. After his first bite, Naruto stopped eating. Hinata saw her crush halt his meal before even digging in. Is something wrong with the ramen, and Naruto-kun? She asked, worried that her special ramen was not as good as she had hoped it was last year. Naruto was quick to wave his hands in front of him in a no, not at all manner. No, of course not, Hinata-chan. Your ramen is as perfect as ever, it's just. Hinata leaned in closer to the boy. Her full attention was focused every single twitch of his body, and the very sound of his voice, searching for some hint of lying. It's just? Hinata said to make him continue. The look the girl was giving Naruto caused him to stop and think for a moment. A rare moment indeed. Naruto looked at the desperate gaze given to him and gave a silent sigh. There is absolutely no way that I can tell Hinata that we already ate too much. He thought to himself, not noticing how he had started addressing himself differently. Naruto smiled at his friend and spoke. It's just, I can't believe we'll have to wait a whole year to have this wonderful ramen again. He ended with a smile. Hinata turned red at the praise to her cooking and gazed downward. Well, if you would like, I see could make it whenever you would want. No. He was quick to say. Unfortunately, this also had the dual effect of causing a cloud of despair to form over the young Hyuga's head. Fortunately, Naruto was quick to end her sadness. If I could have it whenever we wanted, then your ramen wouldn't be special anymore. I can wait another year for your awesome ramen. This time he ended with the biggest smile his face could muster. Hinata lifted her head and gave Naruto a soft and gently smile. The two then ate in peace in the silent academy classroom. After their respective meals were finished and the boxes were put back into Hinata's pack, the two eventually went their separate ways. Hinata went home to masturbate, thinking about Naruto. She went home to finger herself while thinking about her blonde crush. Okay, that's not it. Hyuga. Hinata went home so that she could get ready to go to the festival with her father, sister, and stepmother. That works. Naruto decided to head straight home right after parting from Hinata so that he could avoid the mobs of people that screamed for his blood. It happened every year on his birthday. The close-minded bastards of the village would band together and attempt to end Naruto's young life. And every year, those that were meant to protect the boy decide to leave the crowds of angry villagers to their own bloody devices. While he was on his way to his rundown apartment, Naruto was not looking where he was going and accidentally bumped into someone. The resulting impact caused Naruto to fall down onto his rear end. I'm sorry. Naruto was quick to apologize. When he looked up to the person he bumped into, all the blood drained from his face. Naruto had just ran into the royal purple-robed women empress. She and her two followers, both wearing their respective robes, had been out strolling around and enjoying the hustle and bustle of the village life in Konoha. Secretly, they were also trying to find a way to introduce themselves to the host of Venom. This turn of events could work in their favor. Naruto also noticed a weird, little creature hovering around the silver-robed figure. The creature was about the size of Naruto's head, and was about the same shape as a human brain. Most of the creature was composed of a translucent, green-tinted membrane. Inside the membrane was a cluster of 3 red orbs. From the 3 orbs was several red veins that attached themselves to the inside of the membrane. Underneath the membrane was a patch of red flesh that had 2 pairs of fawn-like claws. The frontmost pair was smaller than the centermost pair. Every now and then the little creature would let out a small little, high-pitched scream sound. Naruto quickly stumbled onto his knees and bowed down as far as he could. "We are very sorry. I was not look where we were going. Please forgive my actions," he begged. You see, over the past few years, Hinata, Irika, I am, and even the old man had been teaching Naruto the basics and manners. One of the many things that Irika drilled into his skull was that if you ever do something accidentally to an important individual, grovel and beg for forgiveness and pray that you didn't piss of the person enough to want them to grab your balls and yank them like they're trying to start a boat motor. "That's all right, dear," Empress spoke. "Please stand." Naruto quickly got to his feet and stood at attention. The 3 women pretended to eye him like an item on a store shelf, and one of them gave Empress a slight nod. "You wouldn't happen to be the mischievous prankster of Konoha, Naruto, would you?" Empress giggled lightly at the end. "Why yes, ma'am," said with a growing amount of worry. If she told anybody that Naruto had bumped into her, his young life would be over. The villagers would have a field day with that. "Well," the silver-robed individual started. "We have been wandering around your little village for a while now and heard of this great festival that was going to start tonight." She stopped and allowed Empress to finish. "And we feel that we are in desperate need of a guide around the crowded streets during the festival. So we thought, why not the biggest prankster of Konohagakure? He should know the layout of the area." Naruto just stood there and blinked with a dumbfounded look on his face. His eyes grew a little as a thought went through his head. If I'm at the festival with these important ladies, then we'll be safe from those crazy idiots. Naruto gave a long, respectful bow and couldn't help the small smirk that appeared. "We would be honored to be your escort during Konohagakure's festival celebrating the defeat of the Kyuubi no Kitsune." Because he was bowed down, and because the robes didn't allow anybody to see the body or faces of the individuals, Naruto missed the pleased grins on all 3 of the symbiotes' faces. Naruto was a little uncomfortable while he led the 3 women to his home. He had explained to them that he needed to change into the festival outfit that old man Hokage had given him as a gift. He has never had a chance to wear it before since he did not want it to be destroyed while being mauled by the villagers. Luckily for our hero, the women agreed to going to his home and voicing that they needed to change into their respective outfits for the festival as well. The fact that he was going to have such important people inside his rundown apartment was only half of the reason behind his uncomfortable state of being. The rest of his uncomfortably was because of the creature hovering near him. Empress and the silver-robed figure, who he learned was named Payback, had given him a short lecture on the creature and that the little being was an ancient creature called a Metroid. He was told that it was the last of its kind, and it had been surviving for 1,000,000 or so years. The creature somehow survives by draining some kind of unknown energy from its victims. Empress said that no one has ever been able to find out what the energy is, but without it, the victim dies. The Metroid drains the unknown energy and other bodily fluids from its victim through the pincers on its underbelly. The energy and body fluids are then absorbed into the nuclei inside of it, and is used to help it grow. The Metroid hovered closer to Naruto as the small group made their way to Naruto's apartment. Suddenly, with a loud scream, the Metroid rushed at Naruto and slammed itself onto his chest. The force of the impact caused Naruto to fall on his rear end with a shout of surprise. He had grabbed the little creature in a futile effort to stop his fall and had brought it down to earth with him. Naruto felt the creature rubbing into his chest and cooing softly. He looked down to see the Metroid snuggling into his jacket. Both Empress and the silver-robed woman giggled at the bewildered expression on the blonde's face. The third woman showed no sign of mirth, or any other emotion for that matter. "It appears that Baby has found its new daddy," the silver lady said with a light chuckle as the Metroid, now known as Baby. This news caused Naruto to become more shocked as the little Metroid snuggled further into his chest and let loose another wave of affectionate cooing sounds. Was Naruto's intelligent reply as he looked back at the women with a confused gaze. "We will explain when we get to your home, Kay?" Silver Lady said with a giggle. She then strolled over to the downed kid, knelt down, and held out her arms in a come-here fashion. "Come to mommy, baby," she said in a soft and motherly voice. Naruto felt a small pang of sadness stab into him as Baby left from its snuggled-into spot on Naruto's chest and flew into Silver Lady's arms. The soft and caring tone she used was something Naruto had only ever heard from the academy students' parents. He had often been forced to hear the sounds of a mother calling her child, but never himself. He had the same wish that every orphan in existence wanted, to hear a caring mother call out to them. A/N. I really suck at these emotional explanations, obviously. Don't whine. The Silver Lady stood up with baby in her arms and helped Naruto up. For some reason she was very reluctant to let go of Naruto's hand, but after a little bit of struggling he was able to get his arm free from her iron grip. When he finally got his arm free, Naruto could have sworn that he heard a disappointed groan come from the woman. Weird. The small group made it to Naruto's apartment building without any more interruptions. Naruto led the women up the outdoor staircase to his apartment, and held the door open for them. After the three females and the creature entered the apartment, Naruto closed the door and turned around to his guests. All three were looking directly at Naruto with an unsettling air around them. Suddenly, the woman dressed in the black-purple robe lobbed a glob of yellowish organic matter out of her left robe sleeve. The goo flew past Naruto's head and splattered against the door, and quickly hardened, causing the door to be impossible to open. What the? Naruto stammered. What's going on? He quickly got into a defensive stance and tried to remember everything that guy and Iruka had taught him about fighting. Naruto, Empress spoke in a demanding voice as she and the other two women lowered their respective hoods. The woman in the silver robe had silky blonde hair kept in a single ponytail, and blue eyes that had a hint of green. Currently, her eyes were staring directly at Naruto and gave the boy an uneasy feeling. Why do I suddenly feel violated? He thought to himself. The woman in the dark purple robe had long dark pink hair that was held in two long pigtails. Her light blue eyes and emotionless face held only complete stoicism, even so much to rival that of the entire Hyuga clan. Naruto noticed three bright red jagged lines on the left side of her forehead. The woman in the royal purple robe had a very tired look to her face. She looked as if she had not slept in weeks. The dark bags under her eyes gave her an I'm not in the mood to fuck around feel. Her short dark blonde hair was held, unrestrained from blocking her older-looking face with two long strands that reached down to the back of her knees. She looked to be in her early to mid-30s and still looked young for her age. Why don't you have a seat? Empress said while motioning towards the debilitated couch that sat in the middle of Naruto's rundown apartment. Naruto did not show any sign of complying with the demand and continued to stay in his defensive stance. His eyes quickly scanned his captors for any signs of hostility, and then scanned the room for any escape routes possible. Just as his eyes rested upon one of the windows in his tiny living room, another yellow glob splattered onto window, and the wall it was connected to and hardened. And please do not try to escape, Empress said in a somewhat disappointed tone. We really don't want to have to force you to listen to us. Naruto looked at Empress with an eyebrow raised. Listen? You want to talk? Empress nodded her head, causing her to antenna-like hairs to bob slightly. Yes, Naruto, we just want to talk and we want for you to listen. Before Naruto could reply, Empress's two antenna-like hairs swung over her head and twitched slightly. Suddenly, Naruto stopped all motion for a split moment. Then he slowly nodded his head. I will listen to what you have to say, but if you try anything funny then we're gonna kick all of your ass. Girls or not. And with that sudden declaration, Naruto walked past the four other individuals inside his home and sat on his broken couch. The three women turned to face the boy and formed a somewhat triangular position. Empress in the middle front, Miss Pink on the back right, and Blondie standing near the back left. Allow us to introduce ourselves, Pinky voiced. We are Marta Loaldi, and slowly, several bone-yellow colored tentacles appeared out of the collar and sleeves of her robe, which fell to the floor and wrapped themselves around Marta's entire body. Naruto wanted to run, or at least cover his eyes when the bare naked body of the flake-chested female was revealed to him, but something was preventing himself from doing so. Like as if he was being commanded by some higher authority that was demanding he stay sitting. He never noticed the subtle twitching of Empress hairs. The tentacles finally came to a rest after a minute or so of slithering and twitching. The appendages slowly appeared to melt into one another until there was a smooth, bone-yellow humanoid shape standing where Marta had. Then the humanoid figure started to shake, slowly at first, then violently. Her body appeared to be shaking so violently that her body actually began to blur a bit at some of her movements. While Marta was vibrating like a virgin schoolgirl's first time, Naruto noticed her body changing at the same time. First was her change from 5'7" to 6'3". Then her body actually began to take a humanish definition, such as the lithe muscle that formed on her arms, legs, and the rest of her female body. Her fingers grew a little longer and ended in sharp talons. The same happened to the toes on her feet. Naruto noticed that Marta was still flat-chested, but he could see her lungs actually enlarge enough that her ribcage was pressed almost painfully against her new bone-yellow skin. Another pair of lungs could be seen forming underneath the skin of her back. The three red lines on her forehead grew out of her head and twisted themselves into three small red blades. The new blades then laid themselves against her head in a three-fanned windmill-like fashion. Marta's hair grew a tad and changed color from pink to a darker shade of yellow than her skin, the same color of her. Her featureless face changed as well. The sound of tearing flesh brought Naruto's attention to Marta's foaming mouth. The flesh where her mouth should have been was tearing away as dual rows of monstrous fangs grew out of her upper and lower jaw. The skin covering Marta's new eyes slowly melted away to reveal eyes similar to Payback's, only more sunk in her head. After the final transformation, Marta's body stopped shaking and she stood at her place as if nothing had happened. Naruto was trying his hardest to escape from his home-turned-prison as he watched the woman turn into a monster before his very eyes. Nothing had terrified him more than seeing the transformation, not the beatings, not the mobs, not even that one nightmare he had of Hinata getting made at him and turning into a giant she-demon from hell with a whip in her hands. We are the symbiote known as Revenge. She finished her earlier sentence. Empress looked over at her advisor and back at Naruto. Her two long hairs stayed in their current position and twitched every now and then. A tiny smile formed on her tired face. She then turned her head towards her blonde companion, who was looking too disturbingly happy. We are Samus Aran, she nearly giggled before she too dropped her robe as silver-blue tentacles and tendrils covered her body. Samus' transformation was not as violent as Revenge's and was more controlled and smooth and liquid. Naruto noticed a horizontal line that ran across her breasts. The line ran from one side of her breast, stop at the, then run to the other side of the luscious orb and stopping at her sternum. The same was for her other breast. And we are the symbiote Payback, she voiced after her transformation. She noticed the young boy looking at her girls and decided to have some fun. She sauntered over to Naruto with a sexy sway of her hips and bent over in front of him. Naruto's face quickly turned a bright shade of red as the massive pair of breasts were now just inches away from his face. Do you like big beautiful breasts, Naruto? She asked in a deliciously sexy voice. Payback raised her breasts up closer to the blonde's face, which, in turn, caused his face to become a brighter shade of red. Do you want to touch them? Payback asked seductively. She could see Naruto's unwavering gaze on her chest and the slight twitching of his hands as he unconsciously trying to grope the symbiote. Don't be shy, she coaxed. Here, we'll help you. She gently grasped Naruto's wrists with two thin tentacles that sprouted out of her forearms and slowly drew them to her breasts. Just as his fingers grazed the supple flesh, Payback's breasts actually burst open into two pairs of fang-filled jaws, complete with a tongue inside each. The lines that Naruto had seen were the opening to her extra jaws, hidden as a pair of breasts. Naruto jerked back in surprise at the two maws that suddenly appeared before him. At the same time, Payback released his wrists, thus causing the boy to fall back out of the coach and to land hard on the wooden floor of his cheap apartment. Baby zoomed over to the downed kid and squeaked in worry, and hovered over him frantically. Payback giggled softly at Naruto's reaction and leaned over the coach to get a better look at his fallen state. Sorry there, Naruto. That normally happens whenever we get excited. She giggled again. Payback then reached out and grasped her adopted child and cuddled it, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Daddy is okay," in a soothing, motherly voice. Baby quickly calmed down and wriggled free of its mother's grip and decided that Naruto's dish-filled sink was more interesting than the conversation. Naruto slowly crawled back up and sat back down onto the coach, while Payback walked back to her spot near Empress. Naruto kept a keen eye on Miss Freaky Tits for the rest of the day. Empress looked over at Payback and gave a small smile at her companion's antics before turning back to Naruto. As you should know by now, we are the host of the symbiote Empress. We go by the human name of Annette Birkin, Miss Birkin said while motioning to herself. She then motioned to Naruto and spoke in a strong, inspirational voice, and you are the host of the great symbiote Lord Venom. Meanwhile, Sarutobi Hiruzen was rubbing his temples in a vain effort to halt an upcoming headache. Just a few hours ago, 3 men from a small village on the outskirts of the Land of Fire had arrived and demanded to see the Hokage about some kind of emergency. His secretary had allowed the 3 men an audience with the village leader, but when they burst through the Hokage's door yelling all at once, no sense could be made from whatever they were saying. What made it worse for the old man was that, combined with the 3 frantic men that would not calm down and the slowly growing amount of paperwork on his new desk, the head doctor of the village hospital was requesting that he be given an audience with the Hokage as well. So, after having the best secretary to ever exist help sort out the paperwork and force the crazed men out of his office and calm them down, Hiruzen was finally able to complete some of said paperwork and was about to call in the 3 outsiders. He just felt that letting them wait for a few hours would be a good enough punishment in nearly giving an old man a near heart attack. The 3 men entered the large office in a more orderly fashion than before and stood side by side in front of Sarutobi's desk. The man between the other 2 was still sweating and appeared to be restraining himself from shouting out at the old man. With a soft sigh, the Hokage asked, What is the state of your emergency that it requires the use of the village hidden in the leaves? The man in the middle slowly took a deep breath and released it in an effort to calm himself. Hokage-sama, something awful has happened to my son. His entire body was shaking with every word. Yes? Please continue, Sarutobi said when he noticed the man hesitate to continue. The man took another deep breath. My son was covered in this white stuff. This statement almost had the old man yank out a form to file for pedophilia, but halted when the man continued. The stuff was like some kind of body bag or something. It just covered my son. He wouldn't move or react in any way for a while. Then the man had to stop for a moment to hold in the vomit that was threatening to spew out of his mouth. He then swallowed hard and continued once again. Then he started shaking and twitching like mad. Me and my wife could hear his groaning, and it was just horrid. It looked like as if he was trying to break out of a straitjacket made of his own. He took another calming breath. Then his body split open and he grew legs. Again, the man nearly lost his lunch, but held it down. Then he just walked out of my family's home. Before the aged village leader could ask the man for any useful information, the other people in his office began talking about how they had seen it too and that their friend was telling the truth. After a few minutes of shouting, the Hokage silenced the men, then asked them the basics for any potential mission. Where they were from, how much they were willing to pay, and the like. After the information was gathered and the men were gently escorted to a hotel, courtesy of his lovely secretary, Sarutobi asked that the doctor be let in. The doctor calmly entered the office and walked up to the village leader's desk. What is the problem? Sarutobi asked, foregoing any formalities. He just was not in the mood today. Well, Hokage-sama, there is a problem at the hospital, the doc said. Hiruzen gave an exasperated sigh. I guessed as much. What kind of problem? Well, after you issued room 312 off limits, he paused for a moment to think of the words he wanted to say. Things have gone to hell in a handbasket. Sarutobi coughed lightly. Please do explain. Well, I've lost 3 nurses, 5 patients, and one of my best doctors. To add on to that, the door of room 312 has become somewhat again. The man had to think of what to say. Fucked up. He ended bluntly. This time, Hiruzen coughed a little harder. Please, I would like an explanation. Well, the man began with his favorite word, before pulling out a sheet of paper out of his coat pocket. The door is covered in what appears to be human skin dripping in blood. Ever since I've lost my staff, nobody dares to go anywhere near that door. I would greatly appreciate it if the Hokage himself were to check out this bizarre situation. The Hokage agreed to look into the hospital's problem later. He had a feeling that Lady Empress was involved in all of this somehow. But right now he just wanted to go out with his beloved wife, son, and grandson, and enjoy the festival's activities. Though he did not approve what the festival always led to, he still liked to enjoy himself before the mob would make any advances on Naruto. Back with Naruto. Do you understand? Empress finished. For the past hour, the 3 women had been explaining to Naruto what he had become. Oddly, Naruto was easily able to accept all that he was told, and currently had 3 black tentacles sticking out of his back, waving around lazily. Where any normal person would either freak out over what he was just told, or have an emo look at himself and understanding what really makes sense or whatever. Naruto just accepted it, like as if he had really known about it all his life, but nobody told him so before, whether it was true or not. Yes, Lady Empress. We fully understand. He spoke obediently, while Empress antenna hair twitched. Naruto stood up and stretched a bit before asking, So, are you 3 ladies gonna change? The women nodded a yes and made their way into Naruto's bedroom to change, not out of modesty for themselves, as Naruto had learned. Symbiote hosts have no need for clothing since their symbiote protects them from the elements, so most hosts go around naked. That includes the 3 just in the other room. Naruto walked over to his small hall closet and opened it to reveal the one article of clothing that he owned that was not orange. It was black. And that was it. It was a plain black festival outfit. Naruto quickly changed out of his normal orange jumpsuit and into the black clothing, then decided to sit on his couch and play with Baby while waiting for the women to finish changing. He did not have to wait long. All 3 women walked out of Naruto's bedroom wearing yukatas the exact same color as their respective robes. Baby flew over to its mother and cuddled against her as the women walked up to Naruto. Now we're ready, Samus said with a giggle. Naruto held the door open like a true gentleman and was soon walking side by side with Annette and Samus, with Marta next to her cousin and Baby hovering just above its mommy. The 5 made their way to where the festival was being held. The entirety of the festival took up nearly the whole of the central part of the village. And nearly everybody was there, except for the ninja out on missions, or watching over the newly repaired entrance to the village. Konoha's construction team was very good at their jobs. They arrived at the outskirts of the village grounds without too much hassle from the thick-headed villagers. Most of them were already at the festival anyways. Naruto was awestruck. He had never been to any kind of festival before, and all of the lights, lanterns, stands, sounds, and smells almost overwhelmed the youth. He was just about to bolt over to the closest game stand when a firm hand grasped his shoulder. Naruto looked up to Sama's smiling face. "How about we all stick together?" she said with emphasis on the word all, then looked over to her leader. "Sound good?" Agreed, payback, Annette nodded before addressing Naruto. "It would be safest for everyone if you stuck around with one of us. We wouldn't want you to eat all of the villagers before we make our offer, now would we?" she ended with a smile. "No, Lady Empress. I will not jeopardize the plans of the great symbiote horde. We apologize," Naruto replied. "Excellent. Now then, we would like to visit our daughter before we meet up with our future meals." "Hello? May we see our daughter?" Annette asked the bored-out-of-her-mind receptionist at the front desk of Konohagakure's hospital. The young lady lazily looked up from her magazine for a split second before speaking. "Sure, whatever. You know where it is?" "Yes." And with that short discussion over, Annette made her way throughout the hospital's halls until she got to the stairs. She quickly looked back and forth and saw that the coast was clear before extending her hair up to the top floor's handrail. She quickly pulled herself up the flights of stairs and continued to room 312. Annette was used to hospitals after the horrible accident that befell her daughter. Annette actually turned part of the grand mansion that was her home into a hospital so that she would be able to stay near her beloved child. It did not take the symbiotic ruler long to find her daughter's hospital room in the empty hallway. The blood-soaked human skin that was nailed to the rusted metal door was one of the things that alerted her to the room. The peeling walls that revealed rusted iron fence behind was another. Annette walked over to the door, unfazed by the sudden twitching of the skin as she reached for the door handle. But before her hand could touch the fleshy handle, she stopped all movement. "How long do you plan on standing there?" she spoke darkly as a figure rounded the corner of the hallway a short distance away. "Danzo?" The old warhorse couldn't help but smile at how peeved his mere appearance made this woman. "My fame precks me," he thought to himself, as he slowly walked closer to Annette. "I wonder," he spoke, still smiling. "How did such a beautiful woman such as yourself become the leader of a bunch of body snatchers?" He chuckled the last part. Annette slowly withdrew her hand and slowly turned her head to the bandaged man. The smile she wore was almost sickeningly sweet, as was the way she responded. "Do you really want to know?" "Oh, yes. Please enlighten me. I know for a fact that he stopped to think for a moment. Lord Venom, was it? Is much stronger than you, yet you are the one in charge. In my personal opinion, that is a bad idea. The strongest should control any form of civilization." Annette chuckled lightly. "You truly are an old fool." Danzo raised his only visible eyebrow in question. "And why is that?" "The power of an individual is not always measured by the force they put behind a punch, but also by how they can influence and control a crowd." She spoke coldly. "Do you think I don't know that already? I have been on the Konoha Council for years. I know how to manipulate people." Danzo's voice showed signs of his dislike of Annette's attitude. "Do you really? How are you so sure that your Precious Root won't all of a sudden turn on you? How do you know that your loyal followers will stay loyal, Tamaro?" she replied with a sinister chuckle. "I have had an entire squad composed of Yamanaka dedicated to maintaining the loyalty of my root members," he practically shouted. He did not like to be questioned by anybody, especially some slut from outside his wonderful village. "And how are you so sure that they won't betray you?" she asked lightheartedly, which only pissed off Danzo. The old warhawk was somehow able to keep his composure. "Might I ask you the same? How does a weak woman like you keep her subjects' loyalties? Not by fear, I assume?" he asked as calmly as possible. "Of course not. We use a more effective method of gaining loyalty from our kind." "You have said that enough already. You also said that you would tell me what it is that you do to attain that loyalty. And like we said earlier, you are a fool. No great leader would ever tell someone of their secrets. But I thank you for telling me yours. Brainwashing is such an inferior method of control, but to each his own, we guess," she stated in a humorous tone. Now Danzo was pissed. This bitch was playing with him, and he would not have it. He was the most powerful man in Konohagakure's shinobi council. Annette turned back to the flesh-covered door and turned the handle. "We are glad we had this little chat, mummy man." She then walked into the pitch-black room, leaving Danzo steaming mad at the spot he stood. That bitch is going to pay. My ninja will find that carnage symbiote, and then we'll see whose method of gaining loyalty is inferior. Danzo thought as he walked down the hall, away from the oozing door. Naruto was having a great time at the festival. Throughout the few hours he had been there, not a single villager tried to attack him. In fact, they outright stayed as far away from him as possible, probably because of the two beauties he had with him and the weird creature hovering above his blonde head. They still whispered rude comments about him, though. Of course, Naruto paid no attention to the people at all whatsoever. His mind was only on the goldfish scoop game that he was currently failing at. He was squatting in front of the long tank and had a small pile of broken paper scoops next to him. On his other side was a squatting Samus, who had a big grin on her cute face as she watched Naruto get more frustrated after every try. His eyes tracked a single goldfish, not too big but not too small either. He lowered his scoop to just above the water's surface and tried to anticipate the movements of his prey. Suddenly, with a quick swipe of his wrist, Naruto scooped up the fish and was about to place it inside the small water bowl he held, when the paper suddenly tore apart and the fish fell back into the water. Arg, Naruto growled as he tossed the broken scoop into the pile next to him. Baby circled above the blonde and let out an Enjiri scream that sounded like Naruto every time he failed, then it would coo in a laughing manner. The owner of the little stand was practically in heaven. Normally he would have been like all of the other villagers and would have tried to avoid the brat coming to his stand, but with how much money he was making off the kid, he just didn't care anymore. Samus giggled at Naruto's frustration. That face he made whenever he was in deep concentration was just too adorable for her. She just wanted to smash his face into her breasts in one giant hug. But she was in public and would control herself until the moment she was alone with her Venero. Across the street, however, another girl was having completely different thoughts. And they were somewhere along the lines of who is that cunt near my Naruto-kun? Actually, those were Hyuga Hinata's thoughts exactly. The heiress was standing on the other side of the street, hiding behind one of the many booths with her two best friends, Tenten and Ami. When Tenten became the teammate of Hinata's cousin, Niji, the two had slowly become friends. Their friendship was further cemented when Tenten gave Hinata one of her many different copies of the How to Catch Your Idiot Boyfriend books/magazine series. Ever since Tenten has been helping with Hinata and her non-existent relationship with Naruto. The only reason that Hinata had become friends with Ami was the simple fact that neither could stand one Haruna Sakura. Ami couldn't stand the pink-haired bitch because of how much more popular with the boys, her grades were better, her father was not an idiot drunk, and that damn forehead of hers was too damn big. Hinata could not stand Sakura for the sole fact that her Naruto paid more attention to the pink-haired girl than to the brunette standing only a few feet away. Since the two shared the same dislike for the Haruno, why not become friends? Who is that with my Naruto-kun? Hinata voiced her thoughts through clenched jaws. Tenten was currently flipping through one of her books and was not paying any attention. I don't know. I'm more worried about that thing above his head. Ami spoke as she watched Baby zoom around in circles. Her eyes were completely focused on the little creature. Hinata kept her eyes glued onto the pair, and every single movement that the female blonde made that showed any sign of having to deal with Naruto caused Hinata's eyebrow to twitch in agitation. Tenten nodded her agreement with the purple-haired girl, though she wasn't really listening. After watching Naruto fail at the fish games several more times, Hinata and her friends finally witnessed Naruto's success, and with fish in a water-filled plastic bag, both he, the floating animal, and the blonde woman left the stand. Hinata and her friends secretly followed and hid every time one of them were threatened to be seen. Where did Marta go? Naruto asked when he noticed that the other symbiote host missing. Samus just shrugged. Who cares? All that matters is that us, you and Baby are having a great family evening. She gushed the ending, and Baby could in agreement. Naruto tried to hide the slight red to his face, but Samus still saw it and smiled. Since Naruto had never had any real family, the thought of having one, even with the unique Samus and Baby, was at least a mildly pleasant idea. Just as the trio was about to move on to the next interesting stand, Baby gave a pained scream. Samus had snapped around so fast that Naruto thought that it would come off. Her eyes widened beyond belief as she saw Baby weakly hover over to her. Baby had a single shuriken embedded into its little body. To say Samus was pissed was like saying that Hinata doesn't stutter. Samus was beyond livid. Baby weakly hovered over to its mother and gave another pitiful scream. It flew into its mother's arms and continued to scream as Samus' head snapped up at the almost unaudible sound of laughter. The laughter was coming from the other end of the street. In an instant, Samus had bolted across the street so fast that Naruto could have sworn he saw an after-image of her. She came to a sudden stop in front of three young Uchiha who appeared to be around Naruto's age. Which one of you little bastards attacked our baby? Samus shouted loud enough to catch the attention of practically everyone on the street. The three Uchiha looked up at her, then to each other. One of them smirked and stepped forward. The disgusting smile he wore was almost a common sight on all Uchiha the past few days. Nobody was sure why, but the clan had really stepped up its ishness. "It was me," the kid that stood forward said, with no small amount of pride. "That thing was just so small and moved so much that it practically screamed target." He chuckled at the end. The other two Uchiha laughed as well. The feel of being lifted in the air by his color caused the humor to escape the boy. He was hoisted off his feet and brought up to Samus' angry face with her left hand gripping the back of his collar, and her other holding baby. Naruto finally caught up to Samus and saw the anger written on her face. And it scared the living daylights out of him. None of his pranks had ever made anybody this mad, not even any of the thick-headed villagers looked at him like that. Baby saw Naruto come up and wiggled itself free from its mother's arm, and weakly hovered over to the boy. It cooed and nuzzled into Naruto's chest. It then looked up at him. Which was weird since the Metroid had no eyes, or ears, or any other visible form of collecting aside information and converting it into thought. "And what made you think that attacking our baby was a good idea?" Samus spoke in an unusually calm voice. Her grip tightened on the boy's collar. The look of shock on the boy's face quickly disappeared and was replaced with the smug grin normally found on Uchiha. "I am an Uchiha, so I can pretty much do whatever the fuck I want." He then leered at Samus. "Like you, for example?" Samus just gave a crooked smile before lifting the boy higher into the air and slamming him onto the ground hard. "Oh, bitch!" the brat shouted. He was about to say more when a large silver blade entered his field of vision. He slowly looked up to see that all of the blonde woman's left-hand fingers had turned into 4-inch claws. The crowd's reaction was what you would expect from a village full of ninja. Most, if not all of the villagers had seen at least one of the many impressive techniques that the ninja that they lived with could perform. So the crowd showed little to no reaction when blades repleased Samus' fingers. "You know," she spoke calmly with a sadistic smile, "we haven't had a decent meal in ages." Her lips parted to reveal her many sharp fangs. The youth's eyes widened in fear as an evil glint flickered in the blonde's eyes. "Would you like to feed us?" She struck a threatening pose, her arms stretched out at an angle, her legs slightly spread apart, and her fang-filled mouth grinning. The threatening pose gave the feel of a lunging predator. Before anything could happen, a loud voice rang out. "What is going on?" The crowd slowly parted to reveal Uchiha Fugaku followed by his two sons, his wife, and several more Uchiha members. Because the Kyuubi festival was such a big event, Fugaku had forced every single Uchiha back from whatever mission they had so that the whole clan could celebrate a victory they had no involvement with. Samus quickly reverted back to normal and shouted, "This son of a bitch attacked my baby," and pointed an accusing finger at the young boy. She then shot a look at Naruto. "Show them." Naruto looked at her for a moment and complied. He held out the injured baby in his arms and showed all the weapon that was still embedded in baby's tough membrane. Baby gave the most pitiful, soul-wrenching, sad coo it could muster, and the whole female population of the crowd gave a collective, "Owa." Soon after, the crowd was filled with how cute and how could anybody hurt something that adorable? About 100 glares landed on the Uchiha boy. The Uchiha leader looked at the creature, then to Naruto, then to Samus. "So?" was his emotionless response. Then, Samus lost it. She let loose a feral scream and launched herself at Fugaku, claws and fangs extended. Itachi was quick to intercept the Anjiri woman and was able to defend both himself and his father by blocking Samus with his scabbard. The other members of the clan showed no sign of even noticing the attack, but Fugaku and the clan members that happened to be on the council all smirked. Naruto instantly tried to think of some way to solve the current dilemma when the crowd began to chant, cheer and jeer at the two combatants. Itachi was surprised. This woman was actually able to push against him and was basically about to hand him his own ass. When a sudden loud screech brought both man and woman's attention to baby. The creature had hovered out of Naruto's arms and was hovering back and forth in a threatening fashion. Samus gave a devious smile. "Feed our child," she boomed in a victorious voice. She adjusted her grip so that now she was holding onto Itachi's hands. Baby gave a loud aggressive screech as it charged at Itachi. The Konoha shinobi tried to struggle free from the woman's grip and was once again surprised by her strength. His head snapped from the woman to the Metroid. Itachi quickly activated his Sharingan just as the creature latched onto his face. Right at contact, baby's back claws gripped Itachi's head and a weird sucking/warbling sound emitted from the creature as its smaller mandibles moved in a back and forth scrapping manner as it glowed red and began to absorb the energy from the Uchiha. Samus released her grip on Itachi's hands and backed up with a smile gracing her face. Itachi, on the other hand, instantly dropped his weapon and grabbed at the Metroid before a muffled scream came from him. Now the crowd was murmuring softly as Itachi clawed at the creature, and screamed in obvious pain. The members of his clan were also speaking Amo-just themselves on whether or not they should help the prize ninja or not. As baby fed off of the screaming Itachi, the weapon in its back slowly fell out and the wound healed itself. Naruto just stared in awe at what was happening. So that's how baby feeds, he thought to himself. Itachi continued to scream as people that could actually do something other than stand and bitch came to his aid, or so they hoped. They tried beating on the creature, bashing it with whatever they could find. When they tried to stab at it with Itachi's discarded sword, baby forced Itachi to move out of the way. Eventually, Itachi was brought to his knees and his screaming had died down to just ragged breaths. Baby released its meal and gave a burpish scream before happily hovering over to its mother, who had returned to normal once again, and snuggled into her arms before falling asleep. Itachi slowly leaned forward before falling face first into the ground, unconscious. Samus gazed down at her child and looked back up with a kind smile, completely offsetting everyone that could see her face. Baby forgives you, she said quickly before turning around and bolting away. Naruto looked after her for a moment before giving chase, unknowingly being followed by his 3 stalkers. When Naruto finally caught up to Samus, she was in an alley, away from the festival, and was huddled over her baby. Naruto, feeling a lot of tension coming of the Shapley symbiote host, cautiously approached her. "We're sorry," she said softly and without looking at Naruto. She squeezed the Metroid tighter. "We normally don't overreact like that. It's just," she squeezed harder. The core's membrane squished at the grip, but it continued to snooze in Samus' arms. A tear rolled down her cheek and splashed on the creature's membrane. "We lost our baby once already," she slowly gazed up at Naruto. "Our baby, our beautiful child was obliterated right before our very eyes." More tears began to fall. It hurt so much. To watch your child die right in front of you and to not be able to do anything to save it. Do you have any idea how helpless we felt? How much we wished that we had died instead? It almost impossibly painful. She was openly sobbing now. After baby was killed, we lost all hope. We actually planned in killing ourselves. Naruto's shock was present on his face. He had just met Samus just a few hours ago, and she did not appear to be the type of person to take her own life. She must have really been hurt to drive her to such extremes. But, she continued, "We met Lady Empress just a few hours before our planned suicide and she offered a way to give us back our child. She spoke of a way to create a true clone of the pieces of baby that still existed, but in return we had to join her and swear our loyalty. We agreed without any hesitation. She was going to give us back our child. How could any mother say no? We were given the payback symbiote, bonded, and baby was returned. And we do not regret a thing. Empress has been such a grand and marvelous leader, returning our child, giving payback a host, and giving us a home. We owe her our lives and so much more." She was still crying, though if they were tears of sorrow or joy, Naruto did not know. Seeing Samus crying pulled at his heartstrings. Naruto was never one to be able to stand a woman crying. Naruto suddenly recalled an event he saw a year or 2 ago. He was heading to the academy when he saw a woman crying. At first he was more focused on not being seen around the crying lady since some of the villagers might blame him and attack. Instead, however, what must have then woman's boyfriend had wrapped his arms around her in a hug and whispered comforting words, like "Sure, it'll be okay and I'm here, I'll make it all better." Naruto looked around to check for any villagers. Since none were around, that he took a deep breath and closed the gap between Samus and himself. He hesitantly moved his arms forward and made an attempt to hug Samus. The instant that his fingers touched her, though, she suddenly tackled him to the ground, one arm around his neck and the other holding on to the sleeping baby. So Naruto was laying on his back, bewildered, in the middle of a street, with a crying blonde woman on top of him. He slowly tried to wrap his arms around her once again, and was successful. Thus, Naruto just laid there with a crying Samus sobbing and hiccuping on him, and a still sleeping baby snoring away. To say that Naruto felt uncomfortable was a bit of an understatement. And to say that Hinata was pissed was like calling Carnage a peace-loving hippie. Who the fuck does that bitch think she is? Hinata mentally cursed from her, Tenten and Ami's new hiding spot behind a few trash cans. Clinging on to Naruto-kun. With her keen eyes, Hinata saw the lower half of Samus start to slowly gyrate, causing the Hyuga's blood to go beyond the boiling point. That bitch is humping my Naruto-kun. I'm supposed to be the only one allowed to do that. The look of pure hatred on her face scared Hinata's friends. As Naruto lay there, he quickly became bored. Sure, it was a new experience to have a woman on top of you, but, being as thick as he is, it started to lose its flair. Slowly, Samus' sobbing slowed down to slight hiccups and near-silent moans. Now Naruto could understand the hiccuping. He himself has cried before, but the moans confused him. It was then did he notice the rubbing in his right leg and an unusual wet spot on the same place. Samus? He spoke quietly. Sure, she replied in a shaky tone as her hips gyrated faster. We're almost there. She began to moan louder as her pace quickened. Almost there, she chanted. Now Naruto was more confused. But before anything else could happen, a hand came out of nowhere and yanked on the blonde female's hair, hard. Come on, get up, you horny grandma. A familiar voice chided as it lifted Samus of her hump stick. The unmistakable pink hair and the red lines showed it to be none other than Marta, back from wherever. Damn it, woman! Samus shouted. We were so close. Do you have any idea how long it's been since we've had something other than our hands, tongue, and tentacles to pleasure ourselves with? Too long? Marta said in her I don't give a damn way of speaking. Damn right, too damn long. So why the hell did you stop us? Marta shrugged her shoulders. Lady Empress wishes for all four of us to meet her at the hospital. She gazed down at the still confused Naruto laying on the ground. And we think you were scaring Lord Venom. Samus continued to glare at her relative before sighing in defeat. Fine. Both she and Marta picked up one of Naruto's legs and dragged him towards Konoha's hospital. Tenten and Ami watched the retreating figures before turning their eyes to their red-faced friend. The look of absolute vividity radiated off her in waves. The two girls slowly backed away for fear of having all of the Hyuga's rage unleashed upon their frail forms. Hinata's head snapped up and turned so fast that her friends feared it would have flown off. Tenten, she spoke in the cool voice normally associated with the Hyuga clan. Give me every book you've got. Naruto, Marta, Samus, and Baby were all making their way to Konoha's hospital, when Naruto decided to ask a question that had been bugging him for the past few hours. Hey Marta, he began, deciding that he would get a straight answer out of the pinkette instead of a sexual response from Samus. How do you tell the difference between symbiotes? I mean after they have taken a host and all. I know that you can tell by their skin color, but that's it. Marta looked down at the young host and replied. Very good, Lord Venom. We did not think you knew that much. Naruto frowned at the lack of expectation she had for his intelligence. Well, as you said, the easiest ways to tell the difference between symbiotes is by their color. No two symbiotes are colored exactly the same. Another way to tell the difference is that every single symbiote in existence has either some sort of unique design on their bodies or an external addition to their form. You mean like your forehead blades and Samus' extra mouths? Naruto asked to confirm what he was told. You want to see them again? Samus quickly interjected with both of her hands prepped and ready to remove her outfit at a moment's notice, or just for the hell of it. Later, Marta answered for an embarrassed Naruto, then turned her attention back to the kid. Yes, exactly like our blades and Payback's breasts. Can you guess Lady Empress extras? She asked in an out-of-character playful tone. Naruto struck a thinking pose, then replied, her hair feelers? Correct. Do you wish to know what your external feature is? Naruto nodded his head. Well, Lord Venom, your feature is a large symbol on your chest and back. Marta stated somewhat bluntly. Is that it? Naruto asked with disappointment evident in his young voice. So far, Marta stated bluntly. Naruto looked up at her in confusion. What do you mean so far? Samus sighed. We just explained all of this to you a few hours ago, Naruto. Suddenly her back straightened and her voice began to sound like an instructor's from the academy. Every symbiote in existence can go through several transformations that differ from each individual symbiote. We do not know what exactly causes the transformation, be it extreme physical or mental distress, a great emotional jolt, fighting, feed, or just doing something random. The maximum number of transformations a symbiote can go through is unknown as well, but the most that has been recorded was around 10. All of the transformations add on to the symbiote's form, and what part of them transforms and what it transforms into is based on the symbiote, or its host's own individual thoughts and emotions. Your case, however, is different. For some reason, Naruto was paying more attention to what Samus was saying now than all of Irika's lessons put together. Different how? Samus giggled. We'll tell you only if you promise to do something for us, she giggled again. Naruto thought he heard the same kind of giggling coming from the girls' locker room at the academy once. Naruto raised an eyebrow. What'll I have to do? Samus giggled again. We'll tell you if you agree to do it. I have no idea what the hell she'll make us do, Naruto thought to himself. Chances are, whatever it is, we're not gonna like it. But what choice do I have? I need to know everything about my body just in case I can find some way to control it in what she tells me. Naruto sighed in defeat. Fine. Samus actually squealed in a fangirlish manner, and had a sudden spring in her step. Now you promise, right? She asked to make sure Naruto would not go back on his word. With a defeated sigh, Naruto nodded his head only for Samus to squeal Aegean. The group continued on without another word, leaving Naruto confused and irritated. He wasn't told the information he wanted, and now he promised to do something he'll probably regret. Damn, I never go back on my word beliefs. He groaned inwardly. Could you at least show me how you transform? Naruto practically begged. At least he would get some information. But before Samus could give any form of an answer to the knucklehead, Marta quickly interjected. She was masturbating, she stopped in her ever-blunt tone. Naruto felt the blood rise to his face as the mental image of a naked Samus lying on her back on his bed entered his young mind. He tried to shake his head to remove the picture of Samus with one hand fingering herself, the other massaging one of her breasts, and moaning out of his head. Obviously, he only succeeded in getting redder as the mental image became more vivid. He snuck a quick glance at Samus to see how pissed she was. Naruto was quite surprised to see Samus holding her blushing face in her soft hands, her eyes closed, and her hips lightly swaying. She looked like a horny schoolgirl that just had her crush ask her out. This sudden change from Samus' behavior from brash to shy threw Naruto for a loop. She shyly opened one of her eyes and made contact with Naruto. The woman gave a whimpering coo. Naruto, don't look at us like that. Now Naruto was more confused than ever. Huh! He practically shouted. Lord Venom is very dirty for asking his payback to do such a thing in public. She covered her face with her hands while her blush brightened. Before Naruto could begin to freak out, Marta, once Aegean, provided an explanation. Lord Venom, payback is simply trying to get into your pants faster by trying to act shy and inexperienced in the interactions with the opposite sex. Damn it, Marta! Samus cursed as she returned to her normal brash behavior. It almost worked too. She then proceeded to explain the information that Naruto had asked for. As Marta had said, we were masturbating to the mental image of Lord Venom rayfishing our body. And well, when we orgasmed we transformed. She then grinned down at the blonde male. We'll give you a demonstration later if you like. Naruto did not have time to replay before they finally made it to the hospital. The group made their way through the first floor hallways, the staircase, and reached the third floor without any problems at all. In fact, Naruto noticed that he had not seen or heard any other people inside the whole building. He could remember that every time he was there, normally after a near-death experience from the hands of the villagers, that there was at least some sounds of human activity. Whether it have been a couple of hot nurses chatting about who was fucking whose patient, or just the quiet hum and beeping of the medical equipment. But Naruto heard none of this while he, Samus, Marta and the finally awake baby traversed the hospital. But what really caught his attention was the redecorated third floor of the large building. To put it bluntly, it looked like a floor from Hell's Hospital. All of the paint on the walls had peeled away and revealed horribly dilapidated concrete and steel fencing. What appeared to be rust or blood covered most of the wall, floor and ceiling of the place. All of windows were broken and covered in rust. When Naruto tried to look outside of one of them, all he saw was pitch black darkness and, once Aegean, not a single sound could be heard. Some of the fluorescent lights were busted and the glass littered the floor. One of them suddenly broke and swung free from the ceiling, leaking sparks. When Naruto looked up he noticed that the entire ceiling had been replaced with rusted metal grating, with uncovered wires running this way and that. But what the most fucked up part of the new building was the doors. Each door had blood-soaked human skin, complete with the stretched human face, pulled tightly and nailed to each door. Some of the doors had the skin of men, others had the bloody skin from women. All doors, though, had their numbers carved into the flesh and a mixture of blood, pus, and rotting meat slowly dripped from the numbers. Naruto felt like emptying his stomach as one of the eyes on a door twitched as the group walked by. Payback counted off the rooms they passed until they reached room 312. Without any sign of hesitation, Marta reached out and grabbed the fleshy doorknob and opened the disgusting door. A sudden rush of cold, stale air that smelled of rotting flesh and dried blood hit Naruto. The boy turned green and stumbled back as the offensive scent assaulted his nostrils. Marta and Samus walked into the room with Naruto and Baby close behind. The inside of the hospital room was the same as the floor it was on. Everything was broken, rusted, and debilitated. The medical equipment was all rusted, broken. One of the monitors was broken clean in two, yet somehow, both pieces were working and showing static. One of the two gurneys inside of the room was missing the two front legs but was still standing evenly, with a skinless, bloody, shapless corpse sprawled on top of the dirty sheets. The only thing inside of the room was not in a state of complete disrepair was the curtain-covered hospital bed that the symbiotes had brought with them. The women made their way over to the clean bed, while Naruto followed hesitantly. "Hello there," a voice spoke from behind the bed, scaring the living crap out of poor Naruto. Whoever was behind the bed rounded the corner, and revealed themselves to be none other than Empress herself. Annette had shifted into her full symbiotic form, which fit in rather well with the macabre setting. "We are glad that you all were able to make it to Otherworld safely," the symbiote ruler said cheerfully to the group, her eyes completely focused on Naruto. Naruto began. "We're glad you asked," Empress interrupted in an overly happy tone. "All of what you see around you is something that our beloved daughter, Nightmare, created. She had taken a host that had strong psychic abilities and amplified them when they bonded together. What you see is actually another dimension that our daughter created and has complete and total control over, called Otherworld. The reason it looks the way it does has to do with our daughter's accident and her extreme distrust of humans. She can take any inanimate object that exists in the real world and create an Otherworld version of it and alter it to her liking. Our precious daughter is unable to copy living beings, so instead brings any living matter into her world to do as she sees fit. While inside Otherworld, Nightmare can see into a person's mind and create monsters, ghosts, and anything that that person thinks is horrifying. In other words, she is able to create an individual's own personal hell. The monsters are twisted into personal nightmares along with the environment." Naruto could not help but wonder why he had been getting lectured so often in the past few hours, but shoved the thought to the back of his mind as the skinned body on the other hospital gurney gave a sudden violent twitch. Naruto spun around as the figure shakingly rose from the gurney and twitched over to one of the debilitated cabinets. With a violently shaking hand, it opened the cabinet and pulled out a roll of bandages. Our blonde male main character watched with a raised eyebrow as the bleeding form stalked over to Nightmare's bed and disappeared behind the curtains. Naruto turned his head to Empress with his eyebrows still raised. Empress chuckled lightly. "That would be our daughter's latest victim. He was an idiotic doctor who thought that he would dare to even touch our child," she shouted with a passion. "When the bastard moved the curtains, Nightmare sent him here and turned him into her own personal doctor. Nightmare told us that he was the head doctor of the facility, or something." She gave an unimpressed chuckle as the used-to-be head doctor shambled out from behind the curtains and sprawled himself on the busted gurney. "Not like it matters now." Empress motioned over to her daughter's bed. Nightmare said that she would like to meet Lord Venom's new host. Naruto walked over to the other side of the bed and reached out with a shaky hand. He gulped loudly as he gripped the cushions and glanced over to the prone doctor. Seeing the hesitation, Samus walked over to her living wet dream and placed a comforting hat on his shoulder. "Don't worry, Naruto. Nightmare would not think of harming a fellow symbiote, but we would advise you to not vomit when you see her. It might make her cry," she whispered in his ear. This did nothing to calm Naruto's nervous hand as he clenched the curtain tighter. With a hard tug, the white plastic was pulled out of the way and the unmistakable scent of burnt flesh smacked Naruto's olfactory sensors. He stumbled back with his hands covering his nose and mouth as his eyes widened to nearly comical proportions. In front of him was the most horrifying sight any symbiote could imagine. Laying in a perfectly clean hospital bed was a girl that looked to be no older than 6. Her entire body, however, was burnt nearly beyond recognition. Her skin looked as if it was made from charcoal and several pieces chipped off of her as her young chest slowly moved as she took in air. Her hair had been burned off, leaving her scarred head bare for all to see. Her forehead and cheeks showed an extra pair of eyes on each for a total of 6, 5 of which were welded shut. Nightmare's lips had been partially melted together and nearly sealed off her mouth. With every breath she took, Nightmare let loose a slow agonized groan from the pain the very action caused her. Naruto noticed red lines on her arms, legs, neck. The lines appeared to have been inflicted by something holding her as she was burned. A large vertical gash on her stomach had opened her body and revealed the charred organs inside. The only organ not burnt to a crisp was the girl's large intestines, which was currently lightly waving in the air like a symbiote's tentacle. Naruto took note of the fresh bandages that the once-was doctor had placed on various parts of Nightmare's young form. They had already turned a sickly yellow from pus that was leaking through several wounds. Nightmare looked Naruto up and down with her 3 open eyes. Slowly, the corners of her melted lips curved upward into a sweet smile. Her lazily swinging intestines slowly whipped around and wrapped its slimy self around Naruto several times. Before Naruto could voice his panic, Empress, on the other side of the bed, clapped her hands. "Oh," she cooed, "that is so sweet. Our darling Nightmare wants to give Lord Venom's host a hug." "Ah." In response, Naruto just looked at his ruler with a freaked look while Nightmare's grip tightened slightly. He began. "We don't mean to be rude, but why did you show me your beautiful daughter?" And Naruto had to add the beautiful bit just in case his question lit the fury of Empress and her child. What happened to her?" Empress chuckled, "Both our daughter and us appreciate your compliment." Nightmare's slight